Okay. Good morning, all. This meeting of the Escambia County Planning Board for October 1st, 2024 is hereby called to order with 5 voting members. We do have a quorum. Reminder to turn off all cell phones, electronic devices, and let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, sir.
All right. The chair will entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal advertisement.
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion by Reed and a second by Tim. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. All those opposed? No one? The motion passes unanimously. All right. Clipping along the date. All right. The rezoning meeting minutes from the previous meeting dated September 10th, 2024 has been provided to the board members. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? All right. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes into evidence.
So moved.
All right. All right. Jay motioned and Tim seconded. Let's, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously. All righty. The rezoning package for October 1st, 2024 with findings of fact has been provided to the board members. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the rezoning hearing package with the findings of fact and legal advertisement into evidence. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right. The motion was submitted by Reed and seconded by Jay. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. All those opposed? All right. Seeing none, the motion passes. The rezoning hearing package with findings of fact and legal advertisement will be marked and included in the record for all of the cases today. Will the court reporter please swear in the members of staff?
Everyone raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you have to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Oh, wow, we're full up. All right, thank you. All right, the board has previously qualified staff to offer expert testimony in the area of land use and planning. Does anyone have any questions regarding his or her qualifications and ability to offer expert testimony? All right, seeing none, we're good to go there. All right. At this hearing, the planning board is acting under its authority to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on rezoning applications. These hearings are quasi-judicial in nature. Quasi-judicial hearings are like evidentiary hearings in a court of law, however less formal. All testimony will be given under oath, and anyone testifying before the planning board may be subject to cross-examination. All documents, exhibits that the planning board considers will be entered into evidence and made part of the record. Opinion testimony will be limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence in the record. Before making a decision, the planning board will consider the relevant testimony, the exhibits entered into evidence, and the applicable law. Each individual who wishes to address the planning board must complete a speaker request form and submit it to the planning board clerk. Pink form. You will not be allowed to speak until we receive a completed form. Please note that only those individuals who are present today and give testimony on the record at the hearing before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the subsequent hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. No new evidence can be presented at the BCC meeting. Therefore, all testimony and evidence must be presented today. The planning board will provide a recommendation for each rezoning request to the Board of County Commissioners and will review testimony, documents, and exhibits and consider the closing arguments and make a final decision. All decisions by the BCC are final. Anyone who wishes to seek judicial review of the decision of the BCC must do so in a court of competent jurisdiction within 30 days of the date the BCC approves or rejects the recommended order of the planning board. All written or oral communication outside of this hearing with the members of the planning board regarding matters under consideration today are considered ex parte communications. Ex parte communications are presumed prejudicial under Florida law and must be disclosed as provided in BCC Resolution Number 96-13. As each case is heard, the chair will ask that any board member who have been involved in any ex parte communication please identify themselves and describe the communication. As required by Section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code, the Planning Board's recommendation to the BCC shall include consideration of the following conditions. The applicant has the burden of presenting competent, substantial evidence to the reviewing board establishing that the requested zoning district would contribute to or result in a logical, orderly development pattern. The appropriate surrounding area within which uses and conditions must be considered may vary with those and conditions and is not necessarily the same area required for mailed notification. A logical and orderly pattern shall require demonstration of each of the following conditions. Consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed zoning is consistent with the future land use of the FLU. Category is prescribed in LDC Chapter 3 with all applicable goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. If the rezoning is required to properly enact a proposed FLU map amendment transmitted for state agency review, the proposed zoning is consistent with the proposed FLU and conditional to its adoption. B, consistent with zoning district provisions. The proposed zoning is consistent with the purpose and intent within any other zoning establishment provisions prescribed by the proposed district in Chapter 3. Get you up there. C, compatible with surroundings. All the permitted uses of the proposed zoning, not just those anticipated by the rezoning applicant, are compatible as defined in Chapter 6. With the surrounding uses, the uses of any surrounding undeveloped land shall be considered the permitted use of the applicable district. Compatibility is not considered with potential conditional uses or with any non-conforming or unimproved uses. Also, in the establishing the compatibility of a residential use, there is no additional burden to demonstrate the capability of specific residents or activities protected by fair housing law. D, appropriate if spot zoning. Where the proposed zoning would establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning as defined in Chapter 6. The isolated district would nevertheless be transitional in character between the adjoining districts, or the difference with those mailing would be minor or significant or sufficiently limited. The extent of these mitigating characteristics or conditions demonstrates an appropriate site-specific balance of interest between the isolated district and adjoining lands. E, appropriate with change or changing conditions. If the land use or development conditions within the area surrounding the property of rezoning have changed, the changes are to such a degree and character that it is in the public interest to allow new uses, density, or intensity in the area through rezoning, and the permitted uses of the proposed district are appropriate and not premature for the area or likely to create or contribute to sprawl. Alrighty, that's always a tonful. At the beginning of each case, as long as there are no objections from the applicant, we will allow staff to briefly present the location and zoning maps and photos for the property. All right. Next, we will hear from the applicant and any witness he or she may wish to call. Then we will hear from the staff and any witnesses they may wish to call. Finally, we will hear from members of the public who have filed a speaker request form, one of these. All right. So now we can move on to these. There are 4 cases to be heard today. The first of the rezoning application for consideration is case number Z-202416, which requests rezoning of 6200 West 9 Mile Road from LDR, Low Density Residential District, 4 dwelling unit per acre, to LDMU, Low Density Mixed Use District, 7 dwelling unit per acre, as requested by Sidney Hyatt, hope I'm pronouncing right, agent for his House of Worship, Inc., owner. Members of the board, have there been any ex parte communication between you, the applicant's agents, attorneys, or witnesses with fellow planning board members, or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? Also, disclose if you have a relative or business associate or of the applicant or applicant's agent.
No to all.
No to all.
No to all. It is half mile from my house. I pass it every day.
No to all. No to all.
Excellent. Staff, was notice of the hearing sent to all interested parties?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, staff will now present the maps and photographs for case Z-2024-16.
Good morning, Allison Lindsay, urban planner. So this is the location map showing the location in red on 9 Mile Road. And this is the zoning map showing the current LDR and then the surrounding. And this is the future land use map showing mixed-use suburban. And this is the existing land use map. This is the aerial photo of the site. This is the notice of the public hearing sign that was posted on site. This is looking west along 9 Mile Road. Looking east along 9 Mile Road. Looking north onto the subject site. Looking across 9 Mile Road from the property. And that's all the maps and photography.
All right. All right, would the applicant or the representative please come forward?
Good morning.
Good morning. You swearing by the, and, is it first?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name and address for the record.
Sydney Hyatt, 7773 Burnside Loop.
Okay. Have you received a copy of the rezoning hearing package with findings of fact?
Yes, I have.
All right. Do you understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code?
Yes, I do understand.
All right. You can proceed with your,
All right. Good morning, gentlemen. Please forgive me. Public speaking is not my finest skill. I'm going to read from my computer screen to make sure I get all my stuff across.
just come forward. A little forward.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. So, yes, sir. I'll make it slow. I am Sydney Hyatt, the agent for His House of Worship for the rezoning application at 6200 West 9 Mile Road. So our original intent when rezoning this parcel was to broaden our view, our audience, to possibly buy the property. Rezoning in Pensacola from low-density residential to low-density mixed use would provide significant benefits to the community. The area is strategically located off a 9 Mile Road, making it ideal for a blend of residential and small-scale commercial development. Mixed-use zoning would promote smart growth, allowing for services like cafes, offices, or small retails to coexist with the residential community out there. Providing residents with convenient access to amenities without increasing traffic or overloading the infrastructure. This change would also enhance property value, stimulate local businesses, and foster a more walkable, vibrant neighborhood for the residents out on West 9 Mile. The future land use is mixed-use suburban, which is intended for a mix of residential and non-residential uses while promoting compatible infill development and the separation of urban and suburban land uses. Low-density mixed use establishes appropriate areas and land use regulations for complementary mix of low-density residential uses and compatible non-residential uses within that area. And that is all I have, gentlemen. I think it's a good property to be rezoned for low-density mixed use. That 9 Mile is ever growing, and we're aware of that. And I think the growth that we're seeing on East 9 Mile is creeping slowly out west. So if we are able to rezone this parcel, I think it'd be a good area to incorporate something other than residential for the neighborhood out there. Thank you.
I think, any questions from the board or staff? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward with staff's presentation.
Okay, this is Z 2024-16. So they are asking for rezoning from LDR to LDMU. So with the criteria A consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed amendment to LDMU is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the future land use mixed-use suburban. The proposed amendment would promote the efficient use of public roads, utilities, and existing infrastructure. The comprehensive plan prohibits incompatible development, and it's defined in 3.04 as development proposed to be constructed next to existing development, wherein the proximity of the two kinds of development would each diminish the usefulness of the other, or would be detrimental to existing operations, which can arise from either land use or structure size and design. Criteria B, consistent with the Land Development Code. The proposed amendment to LDMU is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The current zoning of LDR is a single-family residential zoning. The request to rezone the 1.91 plus or minus acre parcel to low-density mixed use would allow a mix of commercial uses that are not currently permitted. The primary intent of the LDMU is to provide for a mix of neighborhood-scale retail sales, services, and professional offices with a greater density and intensity than the low-density residential district. Residential uses within the low-density mixed use include most forms of single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings. The LDMU district provides transition between areas zoned or used for low or medium density residential and areas zoned or used for high-density mixed use. However, there is no MDR or HDR or even HDMU in the vicinity. According to our Escambia County GIS mapping, the parcel is in the X-flood zone and have no wetland indicators. Avoidance and minimization as well as buffering would be required should any future development occur in order to minimize any adverse impacts to the adjoining properties. The Traffic and Transportation Department has provided comments, and they state that they have no capacity issues with 9 Mile Road as FDOT maintains the roadway. Criteria C, compatible with surrounding uses. By definition, compatible development should enhance the usefulness of neighboring developments, but the proposed higher density does not meet this criterion. The proposed amendment is incompatible with the surrounding uses, since all of the permitted uses of the proposed zoning would create incompatibility within the area. The location of the proposed amendment does not meet the requirement for infill development. Therefore, LDMU would be incompatible with the low-density residential character of the surrounding area. Near the subject parcel, there are some commercial uses along the minor arterial road, 9 Mile Road. However, the goal is to protect the character of the well-established community. Within the 500-foot radius area, staff identified properties zoned LDR and commercial. The LDMU district is intended to provide a mix of neighborhood-scale retail sales, services, and professional offices with a higher density. LDMU relies on a pattern of well-connected streets and provides for the separation of suburban uses from more dense and intense urban uses. The allowable uses of the LDMU would create small-scale developments of 6,000 square feet or less per lot, as well as other uses not compatible with the current LDR zoning and uses. Granting the request would not serve the purpose of enhancing an existing suburban to urban transition. Criteria D, appropriative spot zoning. It was determined that the proposed LDMU zoning would establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning as defined in Chapter 6, definitions. The isolated district of LDMU being transitional would be more intense than the current LDR zoning, and therefore it cannot be compatible with the surrounding properties of single-family residential. Criteria E, appropriate with changed or changed conditions. The land uses or development conditions within the area of the property have not changed. The request for LDMU would create an isolated zoning district with increased uses and intensities, allowing some light commercial uses not compatible with adjacent low-density residential. And that concludes staff findings.
All right, thank you. Does applicant or anyone have a question for staff right now? All right, we're going to open a public list. All right, we're going to open a public comment. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this matter, please note that the planning board bases its decision on the approved conditions and exceptions described in section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code. During its deliberations, the planning board will not consider general statements of support or opposition. Accordingly, please limit your testimony to the approval conditions and exceptions described in section 2-7.2. Please also note that only those individuals who are present and give testimony today on the record at this hearing before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the subsequent hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. Let's see there. We have, okay, 18, 19, okay. Okay, I believe we have one speaker for this one. Arbutus Mullins. Hope I'm not butchering that too much there, sir. You can come up and be sworn in. Alrighty. Let me check. Yeah, look for 16.
Raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you give this case is the truth.
18.
I do.
I don't have it.
As Ms. Hyatt, I am also
Wait.
not a, I'm sorry,
Do you
Arbutus,
need to fill out a form?
Mr. McNair filled out one.
Oh, okay. Okay,
My
yeah.
name is Arbutus
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
Mullins.
Yeah,
My address is 6270 West 9 Mile Road.
okay.
And I was just going to say, I'm also not comfortable public speaking, so
Fully
a little
understand.
nervous.
Yeah,
Just a few points. I've been a resident in the same area for 43 years, so I've seen a lot in Beulah. There's 4 homes that are behind the church that I'm very concerned about. My biggest concern is the 7 units per acre, 7 dwelling units per acre. So if my math, I'm thinking they could put 13 or so homes on there, and I would assume that would be apartments, duplexes, or something like that. This area, Beulah, has just been inundated with homes and houses, and our traffic, if you live out there, sir, you know the traffic is horrendous. I used to be able to pull right out of our driveway. Now I wait anywhere from 5 to 7 or 8 minutes just to pull out on the highway. The water, the flooding out there is just unbelievable. First time ever in 2020, our property was flooded, completely flooded. Now we've had water, but never knee-deep water. I'm very concerned if you start putting homes and all the extra people that are going into those homes. I'm very concerned about traffic. Our school was at capacity shortly after it was built. We have a ton of apartments just to the, I guess that would be to the east. I just don't know how much more Beulah can take as far as building more dwelling units. To my knowledge, that's been a church since the 1960s. It's heartbreaking to see the condition that it's in right now, and I'd love to see it restored or something done there. But please consider longtime residents. Like I said, I've been there 43 years, and I'm the newcomer there. Most of my neighbors were either born there or they've lived there way longer than me. So please consider longtime residents of Beulah. Somebody said it would raise the value of the property. I'm telling you, I can't take much more value raising because I won't be able to afford the taxes. I mean, taxes are killing me, and of course, insurance is killing me. But my biggest concern is the impact that it'll have on the community as far as schools, more people. Thank God we have a new fire department that will help, cover that part of it. But the traffic, having more and more traffic and the flooding, you guys have got to think about the flooding and the water issues. One of my neighbors had his garage completely flooded after development was put in behind us, and he had $20,000 worth of cabinets stored in there. He's in the construction business. He lost all of them. He wasn't able to be here today, but he also wanted me to express his desire that, and I know that doesn't matter, but please consider the longtime residents and how it would impact that area. Thank you.
thank you for speaking.
Ma'am, I have a
Oh,
quick question. Could Could you point out your parcel on this map?
I actually have two. I don't know. So the little square, the square that's over this way, right there, that's where I live. The one right beside it, right down from it, right down, over, right there. That's where I lived there for 37 years, then I bought my neighbor's property next door, so we own both of those. So there's a mobile home on that small area, and then our home is on the larger area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other speakers for this case?
I did receive a speaker form for Mr. McMillan's, but it may have had a different case number on it. So
Okay, yeah.
we can find that.
Let me do a double check again. I got two for this one. Let's see. Okay. Now, I mean, I looked through this unless I missed something totally.
Richard, let's get them just a new form. If
Yeah,
that's-
just give me a new form, yeah.
You can just fill out a new one,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, we'll just, coming up, sir. We'll have
We
you
can
sworn in,
form before you do
and then we can fill out a form.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm? Raise your right hand, sir. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
sir. Name and address?
Stephen McNair, 6230 West 9 Mile Road. As Arbutus was saying, you know, I've lived in Beulah for 73 years. I've seen it go from dirt roads, on paved roads, was 9 Mile Road and Mobile Highway. So I've lived out there a while. On the current piece of property that I live on, I've lived there 46 years. We have a great problem with water. Everything that comes off of a Verbal Road drains right through our property. And like she said, it has been knee-deep in my yard. So I'm really concerned about how much more water is gonna be put on us. You know, it's gonna flood me out if it gets much worse. And as she said, traffic, with all the building that's been going on in Beulah, traffic on 9 Mile Road is terrible. Like she said, you can sit there anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to get out on 9 Mile Road in that area. And here you are gonna put more houses in there, more traffic, and it's just getting ridiculous. Some infrastructure has got to come in place, especially on Rebel Road to stop all that water from coming from Rebel Road through our property. And Arbutus pretty much summed up everything else about the schools. You know, they're already gonna have to build another elementary school out there because of the impact of the community.
Alrighty, sir. I appreciate you coming up to speak today. So, thank you. No other members of the public wish to speak, or? Alrighty.
I'll give you one. I haven't filled it out yet, but I'll fill one out. I'm Chris Kerb.
Hold on just a minute. Raise your right
Yeah,
hand.
be sworn in.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Give your name and address.
Chris Kerb, 5999 Somerset Drive, Pensacola, Florida. I didn't do any research on this before I came in here, but I'm in flood defenders. I worked for Escambia County for 25 years. I was your stormwater management guru, pretty much. Just got to looking at this site with the flooding issues that's brought up, and I'm trying to look up Birch Run subdivision. Looks like a private pond there, right next to these folks' property. There's a drainage bowl in there. All the contours are and basically don't have positive outfall. So when that pond fills up, well, it's going to flood everything around it. So I know that from a comprehensive plan and your criteria that you read earlier, stormwater is something that's dealt with at development review process. But compatibility with surrounding areas, well, it's not compatible if it floods. So y'all have something coming up, I think in January, about positive outfall ponds through the Professional Advisory Committee. It's changing the land development code to require 6-inch buffers for those ponds that don't have positive outfall, closed basin ponds. This is probably a good example of one of those closed basin ponds that frankly is going to cause flooding. The water on the contours on the GIS map from this particular site where this church is, it drains to the rear. So it's also in a bowl, and you're not going to be able to take the water out to 9 Mile Road because they won't allow the water to go there unless it went there before. So you're looking at another stormwater pond in a closed basin. So that's my testimony. It's more or less your code needs to be changed a little bit better. I testified at the Professional Advisory Committee that 6-inch buffer for a closed basin pond is not adequate. You need to be doing what DOT does, which is a 100-year storm, 7 and 10-day duration for your stormwater design. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up, Chris. All right, if we have no other speakers, is there anything? Come up there.
Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear that all
Okay.
the testimony about this case will be the truth, and the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I do. Larry Downs Jr., Plumbing LLC, because fickle matters. All right. 12156 Havburg Drive, Pensacola, Florida. All right. I'm going to speak on each one of these cases just so I can go to the so I can go speak in front of the county commissioners, which I think we should be able to speak all the way whether we have the time to make these meetings or not. But that's I heard from Commissioner Berry last night that is a statutory requirement. So, anyways, more laws, I guess. I'm in favor of this. You know, they need to use their property how they see fit, and you know, I'm in a disagreement with Chris Kerb, the stormwater guru, often because you know, it kind of violates our basic principles of our property rights. And every time that we're denied the use of our property, we're actually denied, you know, our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You know, and of course I know when should the public good yield, or when should liberty yield to the public good, right? I mean, that's kind of what the whole pandemic was about. You know, we can just take that all the way to we have to beg permission for everything, which is kind of where we are. So anyways, this particular one, converting it from LDR to LDMU, I think is, if there's any stormwater issues, if there's any other issues, take it up with the next phase. You know, let them decide if it's going to work or not. Maybe they end up only wanting to put a small little 400 square foot building there. You know, you don't know what they really want to use it for. So go ahead and move this forward. Y'all know me. I hate any time that the government tells you can't do something with your own property. It's just not right. It's kind of where we are today, where the government's regimenting, legislating, you know, regulating, taxing every aspect of our lives. And this is costing people money. You know, your property is your you know, it is your prosperity, and y'all get to dictate who gets it and who doesn't. That's kind of weird, isn't it? All right, I'm in favor of this. Please.
Thank you, Larry. All right, if there's hopefully no more popping out for this one, then we are going to, is there anything further from staff on this? From the applicant?
I've got just a question for,
Okay.
just to Horace, just again on the flood stuff. Since that development was built in behind, and, you know, according to what Chris said, in what the speaker said about the flood, is there any ramifications going back to the developer of that property behind if that is causing more flooding than normal? Is there any help for those people? Because in theory, you're supposed to keep your own water in your own property. If the rules are about to change and we're about to get better rules, that's great. But for those that are impacted currently, what's the process, or is there a process?
That's Mr. Reed, that's a twofold question. And we will have to look at the history of that development in order to get a definite answer on that. So I don't want to speculate, but we definitely have to look at the answer. We have to look and research that matter to see how it was designed, the rules in place, if it's still under warranty, and those things we will have to look into. So I cannot just give you a direct answer right now without me knowing the history of that development. But you're right. Every development is required to maintain its own stormwater, and no development is supposed to come in to enhance or cause additional stormwater issues for an area.
And I know you don't know the specifics about the one behind them, but this question comes up almost every single thing about, you know, stormwater and stuff. If a resident feels that the neighbor's water is encroaching, what is the process from that point? And give just an overall, just general idea to these residents, because this is going to be, that question is going to be asked on every single one of these.
Okay, let me try to sum it up very, very quickly and succinctly. When a development come in, again, as I stated, we have stormwater rules have to be in place, especially when it comes to residential, including subdivision. For subdivision, once it's developed, there's a warranty process if it's to the public. There's a warranty period in which there's any private developer still is responsible for those development while it's under construction. Now, if a property owner feel like that a property is causing some stormwater issues on their property, there is some civil litigation that can be taken. And of course, doing that, if there's some litigation, of course, they're going to research the records and see the history of it. But if a developer, if a owner feel like a development, a property is being caused some stormwater issues from another property, there's some litigation that has to be pursued on that matter. But if it's during a warranty period while it's under construction, during that 2-year warranty, the developer is responsible during that warranty period.
If I may, I just lived through this with my home. A new home was being built adjacent to my property, and there were flooding issues, and Mr. Kerb can attest to this. We were able to work it out. I was able to work it out with my neighbor and avoided litigation. But that was probably the best result we could ask for. But to have to go to litigation, I think that is wrong, in my opinion. I think the Land Development Code should be enforced to its fullest, whereas water cannot leave a parcel and be discharged onto another parcel. But again, I've just experienced this myself, but we had a favorable outcome because I was able to work with the neighbor.
Mr. Speaker, real quick, I just want to say, I think one of the things we need to do when we do present this in the future, I think we need to do a better job
when it goes through development, the ponds, everything, the math, it all works out. It's great. Move on, subdivision's built, they do their thing. What happens, I think we do a poor job of submitting it to the residents and letting them know they're to maintain said ponds, because after 5, 10 years, of course those ponds don't work, because they built up, and they don't do the outflow like they did the day they walked out and had their development order. I think that's a process that we don't do a good enough job, and a lot of the subdivisions don't even know that they're supposed to maintain their own either retention or detention ponds. But back to the applicant, real quick. I wanted to ask, because this one, you paid money, you had to go through this. I know you don't like to speak in public, but man, we want to give you a fair shot, and maybe explain to us what it is you plan to do, even though we have to consider the overall, not just what you plan to do, but what could be there if you did, if this change did happen. And I just want to give you a fair shot, and it's all based for us on the 5 criteria alone. And right now, it's tough to go against the staff's findings. And we just want to make sure you get a fair shake at this thing.
Definitely.
Would you
So,
state your name, please,
yes,
again?
sir.
That's all right.
Sydney Hyatt.
Thank you. Go ahead and get close to the mic.
We do have a couple interested parties in the parcel. Among those include a church, which would be really a good fit for them. The seller just wants more revenue for what they think their property is worth. And then we have a church who wants to put a school in there, and then a couple other outside entities that would like to put a restaurant there in the building that currently is on the property. So as it stands, any of the interested property or parties wouldn't want to expand on building anything that's already on the land. They just would like the ability to do other things outside of the zoning that low-density residential allows.
Any other further questions for the applicant?
How long has it been since that has been used as a church?
It's been about 2.5 years since it's been an active church, over 2.5 years.
So for staff, it's basically it's been a non-conforming use?
According to what she is saying, but that will have to be investigated further, based upon what she is saying at the time. It appears to be from what she's saying, but there's some other rules that apply when it comes to the nonconformance and when it's got, whether it's involuntary, nonconformance, or voluntary. So those are things that we will have to look into if that came back in. But with the time frame that she mentioned, it appears to be from that time frame, it will be a nonconforming. But there could be some other things that could sort of overturn that we would have to investigate and review per the code.
If a church bought it today, could they function as a church?
Basically,
Legally?
again, with that timing, in the year's time, based upon that timing, the answer would be no. However, there's some other rules that are part of the Land Development Code that we will have to work, that we can see if they can meet those additional standards. So at this time, with the timing, yes, but there's some other rules that we have to look into when it comes to nonconformance section of the Land Development Code. So if the church want to come in, we can talk about it, and we definitely will be open to those discussions wholeheartedly.
May I ask, this is a conundrum, so may I ask, I mean, staff had to go through a lot of research to do this. The applicant certainly came to you all. I mean, is there any insight on maybe what your recommendations were for the applicant prior to getting here?
Well, at the beginning, they actually came in and wanted commercial.
Yes.
And so we told them that definitely commercial would not be, it would be less favorable than the LDMU. So currently, it's low-density residential, and as you know, it's only, the LDR is only single family. So if they had been out of operation as a church for at least a year, 365 days, then they would lose their legal non-conforming status, which they have at this point. So the applicant said they just really wanted to, try to get the best fund or money for the property for who wants to buy it.
Right, and I do want to go back to what I stated at the beginning. There are some other rules that we have. If there's nonconformance, it's more than just that timing. There's some other rules that go along with that we will have to research in that. So it's more than It's more than just that timing. Nonconformance is a complex land use law. So if a church, we definitely would be open because, and then there are some statutory, federal regulations, REPULA, that's a religious land use law. So you really can't just completely outlaw churches. That is a federal Supreme Court decision that was made a few years ago, way back. So we will have to look into all those things when it comes to churches.
So the church has existed since before zoning. Was LDR the original assignment?
It, more than likely, it probably was like R1 or R2, but that's what
Right.
converted to.
And then evolved to LDR. But in essence, because the church existed
Yes.
before zoning, this is
Absolutely.
down zoning.
Yes.
So there's a vested rights
Possibly
situation
there's
going on there.
there's a lots of things, when it comes to churches, there's a lots of things that we'll have to look into with the help of council when it comes to, they have a lots of certain other regulations that can supersede state and local laws when it comes to churches, especially with the Supreme Court decision that was made. But again, this is the challenge when it comes to upzonings. Upzonings. Every area is not suitable for upzonings. And this part of the road, this part of the north end, is more countryside. It's not as urbanized as other sections of 9 Mile Road. Yes, 9 Mile Road is clearly a state road, but this area is more countryside. It's more rural in nature. And that's why, and also too, we have to make sure that we don't have a proliferation of other parts. You can see some of those were already there. But when you start letting this out there, you can open up the door for commercial creeping. So that's why we have to be looking at the language of the existing criteria.
Yeah, my concern is why wasn't this ever just picked up in the initial one there? If there was a house of worship, and under LDR currently, is there any wording for, and I don't have this in front of me, is house of worship mentioned at all in
Yes, it is.
In LDR? Is
Yes,
it
it
under
is.
conditional?
It's under conditional uses. And again, that's the thing, because churches always made, churches always made good neighborhoods. However, after they start evolving, and after they started, mega churches, they started evolving, they had to, all states and had to sort of look in on those matters. But churches do make good neighborhoods. But you still have to worry about other things like any other type. Churches are considered commercial, any other type of commercial development. So we just couldn't downzone. Church was there. They had the intended use. They could continue to be there. So when we did our CCAT study back then.
But for the record, a house of worship is allowed as a conditional use under LDR land designation,
See,
correct?
Let me go to it. I believe it is, but let me read it since you put him on the spot.
Hate to do it, but I just want to make sure here before anyone else makes sure.
Absolutely. Because I'm not as young as some of these folks are. Okay, let's see. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, I'm sorry, let me go back. I was looking at, yes, it is. Conditional use approval under LDR. So, but that was grandfathered in, so that's what
Even
that
if it was,
existed
okay,
there,
that helps me
yeah.
out.
Allison, do you know the historical zoning of the two commercial properties to the
I know
Just
the
west?
one to the west,
It was a merger.
we had a future land use change on that one because it was commercial back from the early nineties, I believe, and so then they had to make that consistent,
Consistent.
so they did a small scale map amendment to
To
make
make
that.
consistent.
And the other one,
was
I
that
didn't,
recent? Was that,
I think 2022.
Yeah, I think about 2 years ago.
I think so, yes, sir.
and how about the one in the middle?
I don't recall, I didn't see any kind of rezoning on that one, so it may have already been, but I'd have to do some more research on that one. I don't recall it being changed in the last several years.
And I think that one, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe that was a split zoning and the greater percentage, and they just tried to make it consistent. That's why they did the future land use change. And I think that other one was a split zoning. So they just want to make it consistent. And so, as a matter of fact, and I believe the first speaker, she came and she spoke about about some other rezonings in that area. That's why I remember, she did, but y'all did very well.
Thank you.
And the prior zoning to this was RR,
So,
that it went to.
right. And churches in RY, they were permitted by right, back in the old code.
Board members, do we have any other questions for applicant, staff, or members of the public? All right, if not, there anything else from applicant, staff, anyone? All right, if not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Before I make a motion, I'll make a comment. This one kind of stinks. Just the natural development of the area has kind of locked this property into a very narrowed usability, and the zoning doesn't match. And it's rare that we have a case where we have zero compatibility with the 5 criteria as well. So I'll make a motion to deny, but it's strictly based on the findings of the staff that we really are at an impasse on how to help these folks with this property. The true nature of 9 Mile Road, you're not going to put a house on 9 Mile Road in the future. If the free market had its way, this would be a corridor very similar to the area of Home Depot and Lowe's on 9 Mile Road. It would be an office, a church, a restaurant, something like that. And if it weren't for the bird's nest of zoning that we have to deal with, that would have probably already accelerated and taken place. But based on findings, I have to make a motion, Chair, that we deny case 2014-16 based on staff findings.
Okay, we have a motion for denial from Eric.
Second.
We have a second by Reed. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right. The motion for denial is approved. Of Salem Drive, 627 Salem Drive, and 434 Olive Road, parcel numbers 21-1S-30-2101-007-021. Let's see here, parcel 21-1S-30-21, I know, I hate reading these. 2101-01-021, and parcel 21-1S-30-2101-009-021, and parcel 21-1S-30-2101-001-021 from MDR, Medium Density Residential District, 10 dwelling units per acre, and HDMU, High Density Mixed Use District, 25 dwelling units per acre, to HDMU, High Density Mixed Use District, 25 dwelling units per acre, as requested by Meredith Bush, agent for Old City Developers, and Albert R. Burker LLC owners. Members of the board, have there been any ex parte communications between you and the applicant, of the applicant's agents, attorneys, or witnesses with fellow planning board members, or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? Please also disclose if you are a relative or a business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agents.
No to all.
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 Staff, was notice of the hearing sent to all interested parties?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property?
Yes, sir.
All right. That's there. All right. Staff will now present maps and photographs for case Z-24-17.
Good morning, Board. This is Caleb McCarty, AICP for Escambia County. First, we have our location map showing the parcels of the subject property. Here we have our 500-foot radius zoning map. The property is split zone with HDMU fronting along East Olive Road and goes back to MDR. Here is our future land use map. The entirety of the property is mixed-use urban. And this shows our existing land use within the 500-foot radius. There is an easement on the property that we wanted to reflect for the record. And you can depict that as well on the aerial that's provided. Here's our notice of public hearing sign that was placed along East Olive Road. This is looking west along Olive Road. This is looking east along Olive Road. This is looking north onto the site. And this is looking south from across Olive Road. That concludes our maps and photography for this case.
All righty, thank you, staff. All right, can we have the applicant approach? Give your name and address for the record. I have to be sworn in.
Good morning, Board. Meredith Bush. I'm an attorney and an AICP at Clark Partington, 125 East Intendencia, Pensacola, Florida, 32502.
Have you received a copy of the rezoning hearing package with findings of fact?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code?
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Please proceed.
So this should be an easy one for you. We are in agreement with staff's findings. I will walk through the criteria. As to criteria A, consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed amendment is consistent with the intent and purpose of the of the future land use category. As to criteria B, consistent with zoning district provisions, the proposed amendment to HDMU is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The primary intent of the district is to provide for a mix of neighborhood retail sales, services, and professional offices with greater dwelling unit density and diversity than the low-density mixed-use district. Additionally, the HDMU district is intended to rely on urban street connectivity and encourage vertical mixes of commercial and residential uses within the same building to accommodate a physical pattern of development characteristic of village main streets and older neighborhood commercial areas. Residential uses within the district include all forms of single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings. As to criteria C, compatible with surroundings, the proposed amendment is compatible with the surrounding existing uses in the area. The parcel is split zoned MDR and HDMU and is surrounded by other HDMU zoning. As to criteria D, appropriate of spot zoning, the amendment, if granted, would not create spot zoning. The property is split zoned and directly adjacent to existing HDMU and in close proximity to other property zoned HDMU. And then as to criteria E, appropriate with changed or changing conditions, based on the existing uses and intensities in the zoning district allowances, the proposed amendment would not create urban sprawl and would be compatible with existing development. It is in the public interest to allow the HDMU zoning. The proposed rezoning will contribute to a logical and orderly development pattern. And then for HDMU rezoning, there is a requirement that it meet locational criteria, and we submitted in our packet a documented compatibility analysis outlining how, again, the parcel is surrounded by HDMU zoning, which is compatible with the request. Rezoning to the high-density mixed-use fits with the surrounding area. The presence of similar zoning designations nearby demonstrates that the proposed rezoning aligns with the established land use patterns and supports a cohesive urban fabric. The continuity in zoning promotes a balanced development that accommodates residential, commercial, and recreational spaces, fostering a vibrant and well-integrated community. Moreover, the existing HDMU areas have likely contributed positively to the local economy and infrastructure, making this rezoning a logical extension that enhances the area's overall growth and sustainability. And I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions for applicant? All right, thanks so much, Meredith. All right, staff, you ready to go?
Yeah, we did find that this request met all criteria, and in lieu of, expedition, I think we may have a speaker or two, if the board will. We can go into each finding, But we did find it met all the findings for this
Okay.
case.
Perfect, thank
And I
you.
would like to add something, and planning board members, even for the public. In the back of in your packet for this project, there is a sample, a conceptual site plan on their the possible intended uses, and it appears from what they have submitted to us, that these are going to be ground level, single-family units. There's not gonna be no apartments, there's not gonna be no mixed use, there's not gonna be no commercial development, according to what is submitted to us in our packet. So I just wanna say that for the record, that it will be more residential than the commercial aspect, in which HDMU does allow for commercial, but they are at this time stating that it will be residential uses as submitted to us. Of course, you cannot make your decision upon that, but it is part of the packet for informational purposes.
I appreciate them being forthcoming to the public on that, that helps. Alrighty, we move on to public comment then. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this matter, please note that the planning board bases its decision on the approval conditions and exceptions described in section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code. During its deliberations, the planning board will not consider general statements of support or opposition. Accordingly, please limit your testimony to the approval conditions and exceptions described in section 2-7.2. Please also note that only individuals who are present and give testimony on the record at this hearing before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the subsequent hearing before the BCC. Let's see, first speaker is Steve Snively. Can you please come up? Can you?
Right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Steve Snively, I reside at 3630 Forest Glen Drive, but I own a property of 629 Salem Drive or Road, I'm not sure which one, and also 520 East Olive Road, which is pretty close to right where that's at. So, I'm just here to find out what's going on with it. I didn't realize that my property is also HDMU. There's power lines that runs over this, so I was wondering how they're going to develop underneath of the power lines. These are the big power lines. The only concern, or the biggest concern I would have would be with flooding, because it's kind of like a downhill slope towards my property, and I'm in the process of putting a shop on there. I'm getting ready to retire, and this is my retirement property. It's in the middle of nowhere. And when they talk about HDMU, what I looked up on the internet, it looked like three-story apartments, and that's so I'm trying to find out what they plan on developing with it. And the other thing is that had my easement onto my property, since I'm landlocked into it. It does come through the property on, I believe it's 627 Salem Drive. So that's just another concern, to make sure I can still access to this, because I have a big fifth wheel camper and boats, so I'll be taking on and off that property. Do I have to talk for 3 minutes?
You can choose to if you want to.
Sir, real quick, which is property are you referring to?
To your, to the top and right, yeah, that one, and the one below it. No, down, that one, those two.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right. And then we have another speaker, Larry Downs, Jr.
Previously sworn.
Oh, okay, good deal. I'm good for the rest of them. All right, of course, I'm in favor for this too. Anytime we can get more property rights, of course, we should go that direction. It's just like the fellow who just talked before me. He wants to use his property as he sees fit. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like one gets it, one don't. You know what I mean? That's the problem with property rights and freedom. It's not neat and tidy. So let's move forward with this one. I believe it fits all the criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. All right, board members, anyone have any further questions for applicant, staff, or members of the public?
I have a question for staff. If this gets approved, wouldn't we be creating an area, a parcel of spot zoning?
The actual abutting property, the bigger pieces, the bigger piece, excuse me, that fronts Olive Road is already split zone.
Right.
So that was weighed into the decision with the
No,
criteria.
I'm talking about the property, okay, the one right below that. Go to the right, right there.
Yes, but I don't think that one is included in the rezoning request, is it?
No, it's not, but we'd be creating spot zoning for
Hey,
that parcel.
Jay, if you look at that,
Yeah.
it's under the same criteria, or the same situation as it is now. It's split zoned. If I'm
Oh,
looking,
that-
if I'm looking at this map
It
correctly.
is split zone. That piece that's not involved with this request is split zone. Technically, the entirety of the request does abut, I believe the gentleman who just spoke, it butts his property. That is HDMU, so we couldn't say that it was spot zoning on it.
I'll retract my question. That answers it.
Yeah.
I was just kind of looking at it from what we were creating, would potentially be creating, but we will not be.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting situations, those split zonings we have in this county somewhat. Alrighty, is there anything further from staff on this one? Anything further from applicant? No, sir. All right, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Z 2024-17 with only one comment that Ms. Bush or staff would share with the one speaker, the part of the application, the package that shared what they propose to potentially do, whether they do or not.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Tim and a second from Jay. All right, all those for approval, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All righty. Clip along. The next rezoning application for consideration is case Z-2024-18, which requests rezoning of 7200 block Maxim Street, parcel 21-1S-30-1400-000-001, and parcel 21-1S-30-1400-00-002 from HDMU, High Density Mixed Use District, 25 dwelling units per acre, to HCLI, Heavy Commercial Light Industrial District, 25 dwelling units per acre. As requested by Meredith Bush, agent for 200 Block Burgess LLC owner. Members of the board, have there been any ex parte communications between you and the applicant's agents, attorneys, witnesses, or with fellow planning board members or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? Also disclose if you are a relative or a business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
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 All right. Staff, was the notice of hearing sent to all interested parties?
Yes, sir.
Was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. All right, we are going to go ahead and have staff present maps and photographs for Z-2024-18.
Excellent. Thank you, board. Again, this request is from HDMU to HCLI. Here we have our location map showing the property at the corner of Maxim and Burgess. This is our 500-foot radius zoning map showing the subject property HDMU. The future land use map shows that this is mixed-use urban. Our existing land use map showing the surrounding uses. And our aerial map of the subject property. Here's a notice of public hearing sign that we posted on Burgess Road. We also posted a sign on Maxim there. This is kind of looking catty corner at the site from Burgess and Maxim. This is looking north along Maxim Street. Again, another shot looking north along Maxim. This is looking west towards the commercial property. And if you're familiar with the area, this is kind of the curve of Burgess as you make your way towards 29 at Burgess and Maxim. And this depicts it a little bit better, looking south towards Burgess. and this is looking southeasterly across the site from Burgess towards the commercial property. That concludes our maps and photography for this case.
Thank you, staff. Would the applicant please come forward? Name and address, please.
Meredith Bush, attorney in AICP at Clark Partington, 125 East Intendencia, Pensacola, Florida, 32502.
All right, have you received a copy of the rezoning hearing package with findings of fact?
I have.
All right. You understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals and objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan, is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Please proceed.
So this one, gentlemen, is not going to be quite as straightforward as the last case. Unfortunately, we do differ from staff's findings on a number of the criteria. However, I would be asking that you accept the criteria as presented and submitted by the applicant rather than staff. So as to criteria A, consistent with a comprehensive plan, the proposed amendment is consistent with the intent and purpose of the future land use category mixed use urban. I would direct you to page 15 of our submittal and the chart found in the LDC 3-1.3I, which outlines that the proposed zoning of HCLI is consistent and compatible with the mixed-use urban future land use category. As to criteria B, consistent with the zoning district provisions, the proposed amendment to HCLI is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The primary intent of the district is to allow light manufacturing, large-scale wholesale and retail uses, major services, and other more intense uses than allowed in the commercial district. The variety and intensity of non-residential uses within the HCLI district is limited by the applicable FLU and their compatibility with surrounding uses. All commercial and industrial operations are limited to within the confines of buildings and not allowed to produce undesirable effects on other property. To retain adequate area for commercial and industrial activities, other uses within the district are limited. And so I would just ask that you pay attention to the fact that all operations are limited to the confines of buildings and are not allowed to produce undesirable effects on other properties. As to criteria C, compatible with surroundings, the proposed amendment is compatible with the surrounding existing uses in the area. The parcel is surrounded by other HCLI zoning, which includes those HCLI uses existing in the area. Staff differs from us on this criteria and cites that there are some residential uses within the area. However, I would propound that those residential uses don't take precedent or have any greater rights than the HCLI rights that are existing in the area. Appropriate of spot zoning criteria D. The amendment request, if granted, would not create spot zoning. The property is directly adjacent to existing HCLI and in close proximity to other properties zoned HCLI. And then criteria E, appropriate with changed or changing conditions. Based on the existing uses and intensities in the zoning district allowances, the proposed amendment would not create urban sprawl and would be compatible with existing development. It is in the public interest to allow the HCLI zoning. The proposed rezoning will contribute to a logical and orderly development pattern. And so we would ask that you adopt our findings of facts and the information contained in the report we submitted and grant the rezoning request. I'm happy to take any questions.
I'll ask Meredith, Ms. Bush, if obviously we focus so much on acreage yield per acre, and this is not the problem here, but is there a specific activity that the applicant wishes to, I guess, invest in that would be subject to the change of this, or is it simply for marketability of the property site?
At this time, I'm not aware of any ultimate development plans. I believe it would be for marketability, but there may be plans that I'm just not aware of.
All right. Anything further for the applicant there? All right. All right, we'll take staff presentation.
Thank you. All right, we'll go through the criteria here. For criterion A, consistent with the comprehensive plan. our findings show that the proposed amendment to HCLI is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the future land use category mixed-use urban, as stated in comprehensive plan, future land use 1.3.1. Mixed-use urban is intended for a mix of residential and non-residential uses, promoting compatible infill development and the separation of urban and suburban land use per 3.04 of the comprehensive plan. Incompatible development is new development proposed to be constructed next to existing development wherein the proximity of the two kinds of development would each diminish the usefulness of the other or would be detrimental to existing operations. The incompatibility can arise from either land uses or structure size and design. Compatible development is new development proposed to be constructed next to existing development in which the proximity of the two kinds of development would each complement or enhance the usefulness of the other. The request does not meet the intent of compatible infill development due to the existing single-family development to the north along Maxim Street. The request to rezone to HCLI would allow heavy commercial and light industrial uses that are more intense in land uses and larger in size than the current HTMU zoning, therefore in contrast with the established single-family subdivision and incompatible as defined by the comprehensive plan. In accordance with the comprehensive plan, future land use 1.5.1, maximum densities and intensities are encouraged in underutilized properties in the mixed-use urban category to promote the efficient use of existing roads, utilities, and infrastructure. Any future commercial development must go through the development review process and meet all current standards. Concerning criterion B, consistent with the Land Development Code, our findings show that the proposed amendment to rezone to heavy commercial and light industrial, HCLI, 25 dwelling units per acre, is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code, as stated in 3-2.11 of the LDC. The HCLI district establishes appropriate areas and land use regulations for a complementary mix of industrial uses with a broad range of commercial activities. Section 3-3.2.11F, rezoning to HCLI, states that the HCLI district is appropriate to provide transitions between areas zoned or used as commercial or areas zoned or used for industrial. The subject property meets the location criteria as it's along Burgess Road, an arterial roadway, and within 1/4 mile of another arterial roadway of Highway 29. However, the proposed rezoning does not meet the appropriate transition of the HCLI zoning district. Rezoning requirements as the property abutting the subject property and the residential subdivision to the north have well-established single-family residential uses. Additionally, in a memo dated September 10, 2024 from Transportation and Traffic Operations staff, comments have been provided concerning the rezoning request. TTO has no traffic capacity concerns related to Burgess in the vicinity of the subject parcel. Improvements may be required to Maximum Street due to pavement condition and intended use. These improvements will be discussed during the development review process. Please note that TTO's review is solely based on the rezoning application submittal packet, so the comments above hold no bearing on any TTO comments made during the development review process. Concerning criteria C, compatible with surrounding uses, we found that the proposed amendment is not compatible with the surrounding residential properties in the immediate area. Within a 500-foot radius zoning, staff identified properties on HDMU and HCLI. As indicated on the existing land use map, the subject property is adjacent to and abutting parcels that are HDMU zoned to the north along Maxim Street, which consist of a well-established single-family residential subdivision. Therefore, the proposed uses of the HCLI zoning district will be incompatible with the surrounding residential uses along Maxim, as the requested rezoning would establish heavy commercial and light industrial type uses that would be in contrast with these single-family residential uses. Note that if the rezoning is approved, the LDC requires extensive buffering and screening of abutting commercial and light industrial uses and activities, and such requirements would be required to mitigate incompatibilities between uses and is evaluated as required by the county's development review process. Furthermore, access requirements will be verified with county traffic staff during that process. Criterion D, appropriate if spot zoning. We found that by definition, the proposed HCLI zoning would not establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning because there is HCLI on the adjacent properties. offering more commercial uses while contributing to consistency with the existing development pattern along Burgess Road. And finally, criterion E, appropriate with changed or changing conditions. The land uses or development conditions with the areas surrounding properties have not changed. The development within the area has remained ACLI and HDMU, and substantial commercial development is prevalent in the vicinity of the subject property. That concludes our staff's findings for this case.
All right, board members, do you have any questions for the applicant? I mean, applicant and staff. Sir.
Yeah, I have a question. Could you go back? Yeah, thank you to that map. And that's the current zoning, correct? And could I look at the future land use? So how did we get here at odds with somebody,
Hey, let me tell you
somebody who's worked here,
Let me tell
who
you-
knows, hold on, I want to ask the staff as well, who's worked here, knows this. How can we say in one breath that it is consistent? The last thing you said, it was consistent, yet it's not consistent in two other locations. I just, it's challenging for me to suss this out.
Correct. So with criterion A, with the compatibility with the comprehensive plan, we just found that the definition of compatibility wouldn't be able to achieve due to the old established residential uses along Maxim Street.
Yes.
The logical pattern to change, there are development opportunities, commercial type of development opportunities that can be established under the HDMU. The proliferation of, greater heavy commercial and light industrial, obviously there are those in the area, may potentially show incompatibilities with those well-established subdivision there. So that's why that was defined as such, is that Maxim Street has old historic homes back there, and we just could not say that it would be compatible at that point. Yes.
And if I add, if you go back to the area map, and you go back to the pictures, that is a well-defined. It's older. It was Diamond Dairies. That is a well-established subdivision, and one of the goals, one of the challenges of what the code says and the comprehensive plan says, preservation of existing neighborhoods. Yes, and those homes are back there. And to bring in, that's why staff is saying no, there's not because the definition of compatibility, which is part of the comprehensive plan, it says detrimental. And looking at the black and white language, not whether we think, I'm just looking at the black and white language of the code. It does not achieve this request does not achieve all of the criteria, even for the comprehensive plan, because the definition of compatibility. And that is an older neighborhood, yes. And I know the next question is going to be, well, yes, the whole area, it was C2 old zoning. I know that was Mr. Van Horn, old zoning category. And again, we couldn't, that old area, this parcel of land that is in question, because it was facing Burgess, it had an old zoning of R5. The old R5 zoning allowed for neighborhood, low-intense commercial type uses, like a doctor's office, a real estate office, those uses that would be much more suitable and sustainable for a neighborhood to go to. They can walk to a doctor's office. They can walk. So that's why that was put in place back then. But the rest of the area, it was old C2, all grandfathered in. So, but this area, you have to look at the adjacent and the contiguous uses along Maximum. That other use in front of that, they've been there. I had to deal with that. I had to ask them to put more buffering to protect that house. So we suitability and this zoning category already allows for commercial type uses, high intense, high density, and commercial. So again, every area, every piece of land is not suitable for upzonings. It's a whole bunch of proliferal things that we have to look into based upon the black and white language of the Land Development Code. Not my feelings, not my intentions, but what does the rules say? And we're here to ask questions for any questions you all may have.
All right, if there's no more for staff, I'm gonna go ahead and go to public forum. All right. All right. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this matter, please note the planning board bases its decision on the approval conditions and exceptions described in section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code. During its deliberations, the planning board will not consider general statements of support or opposition. Accordingly, please limit your testimony to the approval conditions and exceptions described in 2-7.2. Please also note that only individuals who are present and give testimony on the record at this hearing before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the subsequent hearing before the BCC. I believe we have 5 speakers today. Our first one is Daryl Stewart. If you please come forward.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
Name is Daryl Stewart. I live at 7301 Maxim Street, which is the red brick house, the second one there on the left, across from the property that is in question. My first question was there a specific reason for the zoning change request? Because the young lady stated that they have no idea what the property is going to be used for. The way that comes into play is because across the street from that property is the oil reclamation site, also the United rental site, and also beside that is the storage lot for the rental cars for, I believe, it's Enterprise. All of that used to be the old Mannheim lot for auction, auto auction. When that facility moved, at the time there was an area between the paved lot and Burgess Road that was part of that facility. There were 2 drainage ditches put in there. And those 2 drainage ditches at this time now fill up completely with water whenever there's a heavy rain. Also, there is about a 3-foot pipe that goes underneath Burgess Road right into that property that is being discussed. They have tried to block off the entrance to it with some rocks and some other debris on the south side of Burgess Road. However, that property still receives most of that water from those drainage ditches. And I hate to bring up the drainage and the water problem again, but when we had the 20-year rain a few years ago, they pumped 26 2,000-gallon trucks full of water off of Maxim Street. The county took it upon themselves after my discussions with the commissioner. We had a meeting out in the middle of the street in front of that red brick house. They came in and they put 3 big drainage tubes down about 20 feet with the pea gravel in the bottom of them to take care of that flooding problem that we had every time it rained. That is somewhat taking care of the problem. They still back up, but the drainage tubes allow them to percolate down over a period of time. If that property was allowed to be something other than wooded area, and it's a concrete or asphalt surface, I believe the flooding problem would rise again. Also, I have seen traffic backed up all the way from Old Palafox back to that curve that is just south of this photo. That's when school is in session. And also, one of the last thing is, I would be concerned about property values also. My house, that red house, was built in 1966. And I am about the newest member of the street. I moved there in 92. So I've been there 30 years. All the houses are old, as was stated, and property values are a consideration, plus, once again, bringing up the flooding.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Stewart.
you.
Thank you for your service, too. Stephen T. McGraw, can't tell what that says there. McNain? Sorry. Stephen McNain?
I believe that was the speaker we were looking for on 16.
Oh, okay.
McNair.
Oh, okay, McNair. But yeah, it's the one. We'll throw that into that one. All right. Alrighty. Farrell Forrester. Forsyth. All right. Yeah. All right. Jennifer Williams. All right, we got one of them.
Jennifer Williams, 6621 Owen Street, Pensacola, Florida, 325. If you can do the
We need you on the mic, ma'am. Get your mic in, and we, yeah.
can you put on the zoning map?
Let me stab the mic, and we can.
Okay, where's my red
yeah,
thing? Okay, so you have the Maxim Street cul-de-sac there coming off of Burgess. I see your nice little red line going, showing the curve on Burgess. Anybody that lives in Pensacola is very familiar with this curve. You know, pass by the old bus station, turn by, you know, all that. Say half of what you want to say. That's what my mom says. This street, Maxim Street, everything that's pink there that says SHCLI and all of those are homes. Those are homes. You know, we don't spit on each other's windows because we have a little bit of land. We have a little slice of the pie still. 5 minutes from everywhere, but slice of the pie. Thank you, Lord. But all of that is homes. The pink HCLI that's between the two HDMUs, thank you very much. Escambia County did that after the fact. All that across, the little thing, the businesses that have been put in, thank you, Escambia County. Within the last 10 years, that's been done. The problem has always been Burgess Road is a state road, not a county road. There's always been a discrepancy between the county and the state on what's to be done with the water. You can stand on Burgess Road, look down Maxim Street, and you will see the visible elevation, okay? You will see, great, you can get on your scooter and you can just ride all the way down, right? So I wish I had a pointer. Everything.
You're doing well.
Off of 29, that between 29 and Burgess, everything that has ever been built since the kite field, when McDonald's first went in, since the kite field, everything that has been built has consistently poured down. The end of the cul-de-sac, Maxim Street, see all the pink there where the circle's done? All of that on the side? 4.5 acres of low-lying land. Never been sold. 50 years, it's never been able to be sold for any good, efficient use. Because water. How many times have I been flooded? In my house? Don't have enough fingers, okay? But it's good. I'm day to day, living by faith. But it continues on, and it continues on. And this is a well-known fact on the elevation. It's a well-known fact that there's a water problem. Things keep getting improved. The problem biggest with that, besides the water, is that cul-de-sac street is definitely residential. Quickly, because my time's almost out. This property is under contract, currently listed as under contract, right? It was listed as 4.75 acres, which is what the whole entirety of it is, with 2 road frontages. Well, one is a residential cul-de-sac street. The other one's a state highway. Is that considered 2 road frontages into a commercial? Okay. It's also listed as no wetlands. It's already zoned. Look it up. Get your Google. It's listed as being zoned with this zoning of HCLI. Okay. We're making permanent decisions in Escambia County based on possible and intended uses for some other Joe, no disrespect intended, 5 years down the road to say, well, it's already zoned this. You know? Just lots of issues here. You must be a busy, busy lady, because I don't understand how you can have the parcel has not been rezoned by the landowner from the mixed-use commercial or industrial zoning assigned by the county. Let's just get an agent. We've got the same lady handling 3 different situations
All right,
here.
Ms.
That
Lee.
can't be right.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? So it's all very convoluted, continuing on. They keep making rules, but there's a way by every rule, isn't there?
Yeah.
And this is our homes, all of that.
Thank you, Ms.
Most
Williams.
all of that, even in the pink, our homes.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Larry Downs.
Now I'm gonna want that extra time too.
Larry, don't do that.
Don't even
All
try.
right, get
If
sworn
I
in,
gotta
Larry.
identify as a woman to get that extra time, I will. Don't question me. All right, Larry
Swear
Downs
in.
Jr., 12156
Larry,
Hadberg Drive.
Swear in. Oh, never mind. You're ready. No.
Man, you're getting me all messed up here, trying to distract me. Call it the 4 Ds, not the 3 Ds, the 4 Ds. Divide, distract. Don't be telling me what to say. Come on now. I know you're getting paid to be here, so just relax. All right. It's interesting that the the surrounding properties that are residential are zoned commercial, so they could develop theirs commercially and have their property rights, have their prosperity, and make more money. Isn't that weird? It's so weird. Every property around it, just about it is. On 3 sides is all HCLI. So how in the world could y'all deny them their property prosperity? Just based on that alone, that just doesn't seem right. You're taking, it appears that the houses are grandfathered in of course, all of it was grandfathered in back when grandfathers had property rights. That's where we come up with the term grandfathered in, before Big Daddy took them. I mean, I'm just here to point out the obvious. MissionObvious.com. So, the DRC can handle the rest. Y'all just need to be consistent and compatible. This is consistent and compatible with at least 3 sides of these properties in question here. I mean, can you imagine one of these homeowners could come up here and build them? They could develop this. They could come up here and apply, and they would be okay. But this property here that's requesting to be moved forward, I don't know how you can live with yourself denying them the same property rights that these homeowners have. That's weird. Anyways, I'm in favor for moving this forward. Let's have another win for freedom. Let's try it. Just try it.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Is Fraser Forsyth here? Forsyth?
Yes.
You want to come up and speak?
I think I'm on the wrong number, the case.
Is he? Okay, all right. Well, then we'll put you underneath the other one.
I didn't sign up to speak, I don't think.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's any other speakers for this case, please. I hope not. All right. All righty, then I'm going to go ahead and close. Oh, all right. All right. We'll give it a second here.
I wasn't gonna speak, but Chris Kerb, Flood Defenders.
You don't have to be sworn.
All right, okay. This area does have some flooding issues. That's another drainage bowl. Same issue as before. And as far as building on it, I mean, it's a matter of the land development code. The code needs to be accommodated to prevent impacts to the adjacent property owners. Burgess Road right now is a state road there. There is a plan that's been on the TPO for I don't know how many years, but to realign Burgess Road. And at that time when it gets realigned eventually in the future, more than likely DOT will surplus that to the county, so it'll be a county drainage issue then. But I've been out to, there's a church, I'm not sure which one of those lots, but right off to the east there. They have a little bitty tiny pond that was built when we had 25-year design storm requirements. It fills up and floods the property to the east of that. And then to the north of Maximum Street, there's flooding up in that area too. So it's just a big drainage bowl there. And really, the solution is a capital improvement project. But I don't know how that fits in with your zoning categories, but I would hate to be the engineer that has to design the stormwater system for this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, if there's no other public speakers, I'm gonna go ahead and close that out. Board members, do you have any questions for applicant, staff, or members of the public? I do have one for staff. So I'm looking at this now at the legal description, and it says it's lot 1 and lot 2. And I'm going through the working case file and everything like that. And I'm trying to understand, so this was originally a plotted subdivision, correct?
Yes.
Was there covenants and restrictions put in with this?
That was way back in Plattwood.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it was platted back in 1963.
I mean, I've seen some as, you
Yeah.
know, early
But we
20s
wouldn't be
that-
aware of any
Yeah.
that are in effect now.
It was part of
A platted.
subdivision, and part of the subdivision, it was platted. So therefore, it is a subdivided lot supposed to be consistent with the neighborhood. And also to, we have to look at the potential uses. It already allows for commercial. But going to much more intense use would intensify the whole area. More traffic, more uses, more stormwater issues, more impacts. So that's what we have to look at. We have to look at the potential uses also too, which I know that, don't want to say this, but it's factual. I know that this probably be too constrained, but even heavy commercial light industrial, it allows for nightclubs, it allows for bars. So the potential of the use to impact that neighborhood is concerning for staff, and it does not meet.
I think it's too close to a
the
church for
intent.
both of those.
But however, there still is the potential uses. That's what we gotta look at. The other uses that are much more intensified as well, that's allowed by the ACLI. So that's what we have to look at. That's why staff, we know the area, but we gotta go by the black and white language of the land development code.
I'm just trying to understand its historic, you know, when it was subdivided, what its intent was with its subdivision.
So,
That's what I'm
yes,
trying
it
to.
was a subdivision.
Well, I meant a residential
Yes,
subdivision or
residential
one
subdivision.
with, you know, other commercial intent or
Residential
whatnot.
subdivision.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Diamond Acres, what's the name of it?
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that.
The only thing I want to say, I don't think it's fair to, what is zoned as right now, they could build something with a great deal of concrete surface, so for
Correct.
flooding and everything else.
Yes, sir.
That is something that would be addressed in another place. And I do, again, back to our flood defender, that we do need to implement some better means and methods for which we are able to hold neighborhoods accountable for maintaining their own drainage. Not only correcting the sins of the past or trying to keep up with the growth, it's not all on the county completely, but I don't think we do a good enough job handing them off to our subdivisions and how they are to maintain their own site. Enough said.
So Horace,
Yes, sir.
these 3 units that are in the HCLI on the western side of Maxim, the bottom one is a commercial, the other 3 are residential. If they sold as individually or whatever, I mean, it could change that subdivision drastically.
Yes, it could. However, now, yes, but we still have to look at the other criteria when you do development. We still have to look at the location criteria. It's still part of the site plan review process. So we would look at that to see if it met the other criteria as far as the location criteria, if they did come in. Yes, the zoning is there, but just because something is zoned for it, that still does not mean that it meet all of the other requirements that are associated with that activity or that use. So just, yes.
But I think one of the main criteria is, you know, access to arterial roads and such, which is one of the big ones that y'all look at. And you could, of course, on the left-hand side, if you somehow gathered up that flag parcel that's just to the left of Maxim as access to Burgess, you get your criteria met for arterial roads.
You will have I'll tell you right now, that was discussed, and it is just not that as you said, Mr. Reed.
Okay.
All of those are probabilities, and statistics. That probability of that's happening is not there. It's from our reviews that help us look into some of these rezoning cases.
If I may briefly respond to what's been stated here. So, I mean, as you can see from the zoning map, the property is already surrounded by the HCLI zoning. If you look at pages 8 through 14 of our submission, those are photographs taken by me from standing on the subject property, showing the proximity of existing commercial uses, heavy commercial, light industrial uses, and there's one on page 14 that does show the homes. However, what you've heard repeatedly from Mr. Jones this morning is preservation of existing neighborhoods, and that it would have to be detrimental to existing uses. I haven't heard anything to say that rezoning to HCLI would actually be detrimental to those existing residences, any more so than the existing commercial that's right there already in the area is detrimental to the existing homes. As far as the drainage goes, again, DRC will address that. The stormwater requirements are clear in the code. If there's water on the site, the water would have to be maintained on the site. The idea that the property should just remain wooded because that's what the neighbor wants is just not feasible in this day and age. People are developing, and it's a viable property, and they have every right to request the HCLI higher uses. There are existing businesses. We would just ask that, simply because there are a handful of homes in proximity, that it not be given greater weight than the number of existing businesses. This is a commercial area. You've heard mention of McDonald's. You've heard mention of a bus station. You can see in the photographs, and you've heard mention from one of the speakers of an oil reclamation site, United Rental and Enterprise Car Rental lot. So I would just ask that you adopt criteria submitted by the applicant. Staff themselves said, to me, that this was a flip of the coin as to whether or not, as to how their findings would go. And I'm just asking that you flip it on over to our side. Thanks.
And if I may, just to respond to some of the criteria, it's, as planners, it's our responsibility to try to plan using smart growth principles. Smart growth principles. Just because a use has the potential to go in the zoning category, that does not mean that the land or the area is suitable. It's suitable for that. Yes, this zoning category currently, it does allow, and as Mr. Powell stated, it does allow for some commercial uses. But the upzoning is not always a guarantee. There are certain specifications and rules and regulations that comes with upzoning, and proper planning with proper controls. You don't have to always approve because it's not always feasible or possible with the area. And those other uses, they are across the street, they are separated by right of way, but this is a older subdivision. And we have to look at those, just because commercial all around, do we want to have commercial intrusion right in that contiguous to homes and the houses, right there on that little small strip called Maximum? Those are the things that we as players, and we do approve rezonings. But in this case, when we're looking at the preservation, the enhancement, we don't want to continue to cause more impacts on these areas in which we don't have to, especially when you already have the zoning category that does allow for commercial uses. And once we get those, we can, through the DRC site processes, we can look at those things. So upzoners are not always suitable for every area or for every lot. And the potential uses, if you look at all the potential uses that's going ACLI, that's where the detriment come in at. That's where the impacts come in at. That's what the impacts of those potential uses that could have an enormous, substantial, more of an egregious impacts that's already there. Increased impacts.
All right, thank you, staff. Thank you, Horace. Any other questions from the board on this one? Always gonna get full.
Is this under the Oakfield redevelopment overlay?
I don't think this, Oakfield, I don't know if this is or not.
If you pull up the findings to confirm, it should be on the cover page. So
I haven't heard
Oakfield, but
anything
it's,
from either party, the applicant or staff, if there's any impacts.
the Oakfield is a CRA district, but there's no standards. It's not defined.
But did he get 11 there?
Mm-mm.
Okay, yeah, there are no standards, but it is a,
There's several CRA districts that are not defined. Maybe one day they will be defined, but as of right now, Oakfield is not defined.
All right, if there's nothing more, then Chair will entertain a motion.
Prior to the vote, I think it would be helpful for the board to either adopt or reject staff findings.
Oh, thank you.
The motion will include that. I'm gonna make a motion regarding KZ 2024 TAC 18, based on staff's findings, A, B, C, and E, specifically C. I recommend disapproval.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Tim. All right, we'll hold the vote. All those in favor of the disapproval of this one, raise your right hand. I'm on the fence on this one. Yes, what's our vote right now? 2. I'll just put it in public. I'm not in love with this either which way. I'm split on it very much. So we have a piece of property. I'm going to speak on this in the vote. We have a piece of property that's literally in between HCLI, but then it's clearly part of a residential subdivision historically. And mind you, that one has different zonings going through it. I'm personally split.
And if I may, Mr. Horn, I'm not trying to convince you, but just trying to emphasize something. Again, I'm doing my job, Larry. What's been required to do. This is, again, we have to take what can go there. And there are already some uses, commercial type uses, that can go there. Now, and even there's another aspect of it that say, let's say they want to, it is not rezoned, and one of those uses that they want to do, it requires conditional use approval. So therefore, there's a special meeting for that where the neighbors can know, and the neighbors, okay, that's not of enormous impact. So high density mixed use, it does allow for some intense commercial activities. Those other uses, they were there. You know, we had CCAS, we couldn't down zone those uses. They were already C2, and we couldn't down zone. We couldn't down zone you, that would have been takings. But staying with a zoning category that currently allows for, that's in a platted subdivision, that's facing a local road, that where there's already impacts in that area, that's what we have to look at, the potential impacts for that piece of property. That just, that may have swung you the other way, but at least it's still out there again. The potential uses that's concerning.
If we're in discussion, quickly, briefly, I would state the only reason, look, I have a high regard for property rights and their particular, do what you want to do, and this is a difficult case. In this particular case, that bottom section where we get to use our gray matter between the years on these things, not just the 5 criteria. Unfortunately for me, the applicants, the fact that it's, to me, it seems like it's more due to marketability. I don't weigh that less than anything, except when we have people who live there and are speaking about their neighborhood. I just don't find it compelling enough. If there had been a particular usage and willingness to work with the community, that would be a completely, entirely different animal. However, there isn't that in this case, and we do have people who live there and are impacted. And therefore, the burden of the proof is on the applicant to upzone, in my opinion. And it just, I mean, I think it was a very good, the applicant made a very good case. With the maps, it's very challenging on this one. But it came down to me personally, folks living there, and the fact that there isn't again, we always have to consider what could be, potentially. I don't negate that, but I always feel like the applicant and developer, whomever, they should go out and they should be the good neighbor and share, hey, this is what we plan on doing and how we plan on doing it. I understand that that's not the way every case is going to be. And that they have the right to market it as they wish, and they have the right to bring it to us to vote on that. And that holds no less weight, in my opinion. It just does when it comes down to the personal effect in this and the people affected by it.
So, Horace,
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
if this case.
I can't hear y'all, let me, yes.
That's okay. If this case was the southern parcel by itself,
Help me with, show me the maps, I
Pull
need
up the
maps. to know
zoning
what you're
map.
talking about. Let me. What's this part, okay?
if it was that parcel by itself and not the additional one to the north, would it change anything?
Respectfully, Mr. Reed, it would not, because it's still.
Still
part of
platted
a
subdivision,
platted
I understand.
Subdivision. No, it would not change anything, Mr. Reed, respectfully.
Okay.
And staff, it was, but we're just looking at, I know the area, I know it's all commercial, but we have to look at, do we want to have a proliferation more and just, are we trying to just, every lot is not is eligible for an upzoning?
We're really kind of in votes. We shouldn't, yeah. Hey, now this one's a tough one for me. All right, so we have a motion from Jay and a second from Tim on this one for disapproval. Let's go ahead and hold the vote again. Ready? All those approve the disapproval from Jay's motion? All right, motion passes 3 and 2 abstain, or non-voting?
If you ask.
Yeah. All right, and then, those opposed? All right, 3 to 2?
Did that deliver what you needed?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the no,
All right.
right?
All right, thank you for that one. We're on to the next case now. The next rezoning application for consideration is case Z-2024-19, which requests the rezoning of 300 block Bloomsdale Lane from MDR, medium density residential district, 10 dwelling units per acre, to HDR, high density residential district, 18 dwelling units per acre, as requested by Meredith Bush, agent for Old City Developers LLC owner. Members of the board, have there been any ex parte communications between you, the applicant's agents or attorneys or witnesses, with fellow planning board members or anyone with the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? Please also disclose if you are a relative or business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
This one here is interesting for me. No to current applicant, no to agent, no to current ownership. I have discussed this in my capacity in the Warrington Revitalization Committee on this.
Chairman, I cannot hear.
Oh, sorry.
There's too much noise in the audience.
Okay, all right. You want me to start over?
Well, just.
I'll start over. So,
Can y'all make sure that y'all take that conversations outside so we can hear? Thank you.
all right, so no to applicant and current applicant agent or attorney. Currently, I have had discussions on this property in my past dealings with the Warrington Revitalization Committee as vice chair of that. And in regards to the Bluff Line project, which is bordering this at Jackson Lakes, and I have been to the subject property. So,
No to all?
No to all.
And no to all.
Staff, was notice of the hearing sent to all interested parties?
Yes, sir.
All right, was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property?
Yes, sir.
All righty. All right, well then we got staff will present the maps and photographs for Z 2024-18, or 19.
Excellent, thank you. Our first map shows the location of the subject property. This is off of Navy, going back off of Chaseville. This is our 500-foot radius zoning map showing that the property is MDR with a larger portion of HDMU directly across from it and some commercial along Navy. The future land use of the property is mixed-use urban. There is some commercial future land use designations in the area. And this shows the existing land uses of the property. There's a mix of vacant and primarily single-family and commercial along Navy again. This is in the Warrenton Community Redevelopment Area. We want to make sure we depicted that. And this shows an aerial of the property as it sits. This is our notice of public hearing sign that was posted on Freedom Street, or Freedom Lane. This is looking east along Freedom Lane. This is looking west towards Chaseville Street at the stop sign there. This is looking south across Freedom Lane. This is looking onto the site from Freedom Lane. Site's currently vacant. This is a notice of public hearing sign that we placed on Chaseville. We put a couple of signs out there. This is looking north along Chaseville Street, along the drainage. This is looking south towards Freedom. And this is looking west across Chaseville Street from the site. This is again looking onto the site from Chaseville Street. That concludes our maps and photographs for this case.
Will the applicant come up? You know, name and address as usual.
Yes, Meredith Bush, attorney and AICP at Clark Partington, 125 East Intendencia, Pensacola, Florida, 32502.
All right, have you received a copy of the rezoning hearing package with findings of fact?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Do you understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code?
Yes.
All right, good, it's yours.
So this is another situation where staff disagrees with our findings, so we would be asking that you adopt the applicant's findings of fact. I will walk through the criteria for the HDR rezoning. Criteria A, consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed amendment is consistent with the intent and purpose of the current future land use category of MUU. Again, if you looked at that chart in 3-1.3 in the Land Development Code, it outlines the consistency and compatibility of the zoning district with that future land use category. As to criteria B, consistent with zoning district provisions, the proposed amendment to HDR is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The parcel is adjacent to medium-density residential and high-density mixed-use property. The HDR district establishes appropriate areas and land use regulations for residential uses at high densities within urban areas. The primary intent of the district is to provide for residential neighborhood development in an efficient urban pattern of well-connected streets at a greater dwelling unit density and diversity than the medium-density residential district. Residential uses within the HDR district include most forms of single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings. The residential nature of HDR is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. As to criteria C, compatible with its surroundings, the proposed amendment is compatible with surrounding existing uses in the area. Within a 1,500-foot radius, the applicant has identified property zoned MDR, HDMU, commercial, and HCLI. Residential uses within the HDR district include most forms of single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings, which are compatible with the surrounding area. Within the general vicinity, there are residential and commercial uses. The commercial uses include a patio store, a car repair shop, a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, tire shop, barber shop, and secondhand resale stores. To ensure additional compatibility with existing adjacent uses, if the amendment is approved, further review and evaluation through the Development Review Committee process may be necessary. As to criterion D, appropriate spot zoning, the amendment request, if granted, would create spot zoning. However, the isolated district would be transitional in character between the surrounding districts, and the differences between the districts would be limited as HDR is a residential district. Section 3-2.8F of the Land Development Code states that HDR zoning is appropriate to provide transitions between areas zoned or used for medium-density residential and areas zoned or used for high-density mixed-use or commercial. So this fits exactly in that category. This property is adjacent to MDR zoning and HDMU zoning, so HDR would be an appropriate transitional category. And then criterion E, appropriate with changed or changing conditions. Based on the existing uses and intensities and the zoning district allowances, the proposed amendment would not create urban sprawl and would be compatible with existing development. It is in the public interest to allow HDR zoning. The proposed rezoning will contribute to a logical and orderly development pattern. One thing I would point out, while this application is for HDR, the proposed development would also work in HDMU, which is directly across the street. So before, after you hear staff's findings, if you come to a position where you feel like you're leaning towards a denial, I would ask that you consider the HDMU zoning instead.
Just out of curiosity, could we even do that for this one right this second with the findings you've already done?
Yeah, the request is to HDR.
Yeah.
And the uses, and I believe that the density of 25 dwelling unit is still the same.
The density would
The
increase with
density-
HDMU.
Yes, and also too, and the potential uses. The potential uses would definitely be much more of an impact. HDR just allows for residential uses only, including apartments. But HDMU allows for commercial and high intense residential use. So that would be,
And we're only
those type of
seeking-
conflicts will still exist in both zoning categories.
And we're only seeking the residential, which is why we went to the HDR. However, given that there's the HDMU across the street, something to consider. If there was a higher medium density category, we're trying to get 20 lots on this site, and it would allow for about, I believe, 10 or 12 or something like that right now.
And if we had conditional rezoning, which we do not, if there was some type of consensus with the neighborhood, if she meet with them or whatever, deed restrictions that they could bring forth next time, all those things with the help of legal make it made if they just doing a residential apartment. But it still would allow for apartments, and that still is a factor. But the neighbors will have to basically get some consensus or buy-in. So that's all we're looking into,
Hey, Horace?
Yes, thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Reed.
I know the HDMU is across the street. Is that a Escambia County holding pond? Is that?
Yes, that's owned by the county.
Yes, sir, so
Okay.
and Holding Pond's basically going in the area, so that's really not a significant use impact, because it's a holding pond.
Okay.
Public infrastructure.
Thank you. Clarification, thank you.
Yeah. Meredith, let's let staff, and then we'll discuss this a bit more.
All right, excellent. Again, this request is from MDR, medium density residential, to HDR, high density residential. For our findings concerning criterion A, consistent with a comprehensive plan, we found that the proposed amendment to HDR is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the future land use category of mixed use urban, as stated in comprehensive plan future land use 1.3.1 and housing element 1.4. According to the future land use 1.3.1, the mixed use urban future land use category allows residential development and different types of retail sales and services while promoting compatible infill development. The associated uses, densities, and intensities of the HCR zoning district will not promote compatibility within the surrounding single-family developments, nor the separation of urban and suburban land uses. Further, as stated in Housing Element 1.4, the rezoning request would allow more intense residential development that would not protect the character of the existing residential neighborhood. Concerning criterion B, consistent with the Land Development Code, we found that the proposed amendment to rezone to high-density residential, 18 dwelling units per acre, is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. As stated in 3-2.8 of the Land Development Code, the HDR district establishes appropriate areas and land use regulations for residential neighborhood development and greater diversity than MDR. Section 3.2.8 F, rezoning to HDR, clearly states that HDR district is appropriate to provide transitions between areas zoned or used as medium-density residential and areas zoned or used for high-density mixed use. There are no adjacent parcels that are HDR, therefore it does not appear that the surrounding use is a transition from MDR to HDMU, concluding that criterion B has not been met. Additionally, in a memo dated September 10, 2024, from Transportation and Traffic Operations staff, comments have been provided concerning the rezoning request. TTO has no traffic capacity concerns related to Bloomsdale or Chaseville in the vicinity of the subject parcel. Improvements may be required to Bloomsdale, Chaseville Street due to pavement condition, roadway width, and intended use intensity. These improvements will be discussed in a development review process. Please note that TTO's review is solely based on the rezoning application submittal pack, so the comments hold no bearing to TTO comments made in the development review process. Continuing to criterion C, compatible with surrounding uses. Our findings show that the proposed amendment is not compatible with the surrounding MDR properties in the immediate area. As indicated on the zoning map, the subject parcel is adjacent to parcels that are MDR zone. The surrounding uses are single-family residential homes on individual lots. The HDMU zone property across Chaseville Street right-of-way is a county-owned pond area. Therefore, the proposed uses of a HDR zoning district will be incompatible with the surrounding uses in the neighborhood. The rezoning request to HDR would allow site and building allowances, such as greater height limits and greater allowed density, that would be in contrast to the surrounding MDR zone single-family properties. Note there are commercial uses within the 500-foot radius zoning, yet all front Navy Boulevard, a major arterial road. Additionally, in a memo dated September 12, 2024, Community Redevelopment Agency staff has reviewed the request and provided the following comments. The subject is located within the Warrenton redevelopment area. The 2024 update to the Warrenton redevelopment plan serves as the CRA's guiding document for the Warrenton redevelopment area. Chapter 3 of the redevelopment plan identifies redevelopment objectives and strategies. The following is an excerpt from the area-wide strategy for zoning regarding housing. There are area-wide strategies, several plans, and studies with development for the Warrenton redevelopment. The CRA and community partners continue to strive to preserve the historic waterfront village character of the community by supporting innovative land use planning, law and code enforcement initiatives to encourage safe, clean, pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods and commercial centers. Programs will support rehabilitation of existing houses and commercial properties and construction of new compatible infill and commercial reinvestment. Economic development opportunities will continue to be supported through brownfield redevelopment incentives and county incentive programs. Housing objective, while some of the housing needs have been addressed in the Warrenton area, there continues to be vacant, underutilized parcels and pockets of substandard housing in the area. The community proximity to the water also presents a unique set of storm mitigation issues. Action strategies, the CRA in conjunction with the Neighborhood Enterprise Division must continue to target housing rehabilitation programs and hurricane mitigation programs to the Warrenton area. Infill new construction, home ownership programs, and rehabilitation programs should continue to be the target to the area. The county will continue to work with developers willing to undertake new subdivisions and rental complexes in the area, such as the Wynn Oaks development south of Patton Drive and the Pines at Warrenton located on West Navy Boulevard. The intent of the area-wide strategy mentioned above is to support the development and redevelopment of housing units in Warrenton. Therefore, infill housing development is supported by the CRA. However, the proposed rezoning of the property to HDR appears to be out of context of the neighborhood. While infill development is an important component of neighborhood redevelopment, it must protect the character of the neighborhood. The following is a relevant objective from the Escambia County Comprehensive Plan concerning housing element 1.4, existing neighborhood redevelopment. is to protect the character of existing residential neighborhoods, provide opportunities for redevelopment and infill development, and reduce the number of substandard housing units through continued implementation of structural and aesthetic improvement programs such as, but not limited to, preservation and infill, regulation enforcement, construction inspection, improvement aid, unsafe building abatement, substandard home removal, infrastructure improvement, and rental units and housing stock conservation rehabilitation. Upzoning the subject property to HDR does not appear to be congruent with the adjacent parcels or the neighborhood as a whole. Infill development with density higher than the surrounding single-family homes could still be viable with the existing MDR zoning, which would prove more compatible with the proposed density of HDR. Continuing to criterion D, appropriate if spot zoning. Our findings show that it was determined by definition the proposed HDR zoning would establish and reinforce a condition of spot zoning because there is no HDR in the adjacent or surrounding properties, offering more intense residential uses while contributing to inconsistencies with the existing development pattern. And then finally, criterion E, appropriate with change or changing conditions. We found that the land uses or development conditions within the surrounding area, the properties have not changed. The development within the area has remained medium density residential. That concludes staff's findings for this case.
All right, thank you, staff. All right, we have a substantial amount of comments from public here, but is there anything for staff right this second? All right, we'll save that for there. All right, let's see the first speaker up, Jeffrey Lee Williams. Let me also read the one thing here too. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this matter, please note that the planning board bases its decision on the approval conditions and exceptions in section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code. During its deliberations, the planning board will not consider statements of support or opposition. Accordingly, please limit your testimony to the approval conditions and exceptions described in section 2-7.2. Please also note that only those individuals who are present today and give testimony on the record at this hearing before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the subsequent hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. All right, please state your name and be sworn in.
Jeffrey Lee Williams.
And
My address, you want that too?
Yes, please.
205 Freedom Lane, Pensacola, Florida, 32507.
Raise your right hand, sir. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
As staff, can you also put the criteria up as well?
Ready? Okay. I am here to say that I am opposed to making this zoning change, mainly because of Section C, compatible with surroundings. Freedom Lane, Alton Road, Chaseville Street, Shadow Lawn have been single-family resident dwellings since as long as I can remember. I grew up in that neighborhood, okay? We have mothers walking babies in strollers, kids playing in the street, pets playing in the street with those kids on Chaseville Street, and it's my understanding there are several autistic or developmentally challenged individuals, kids living there. To put an apartment complex in at the Bloomsdale Drive area, by the way, it's Bloomsdale Drive, not Bloomsdale Lane, just as a point of fact. It's going to increase the traffic flow immensely. Typical apartment dwellings have people coming and going all hours of the day and night. Not typically like mom, dad go to work, they get home 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, things settle down, and then other than the occasional departure or arrival, you have low impact on traffic in the neighborhood. That's one reason to keep it zoned as it is. Another reason is all those beautiful oak trees on this property. In my opinion, none of those should be cut down to put anything on there. If they want to build a house on the property, build the house, design it so that it works with the landscape and keeps those heritage oaks, those live oaks there. There's one more thing that it's going to bring if they build that. I would suspect that they're not going to put up an apartment complex and have 18 or 32 or 36 different septic tanks out there, which means the ECUA would then be banging the drum to put a pipeline down that corridor and into the whole neighborhood. Now, I've done the research on this on a previous hearing that the ECUA had regarding putting sewage lines through neighborhoods. And the average of the distance on Freedom Lane below the high point on Navy Boulevard is from anywhere from 4 feet lower to 14 feet lower. Now, not if, but when the hurricanes come, and when the power goes off, and when the pumps stop pumping uphill, all that sewage is going to seek the lowest point, which happens to be right down my road. Don't need a whole bunch of apartment units sewage backing up and coming down the road as well. And so right now, the way things are is the way they should stay. Absolutely, please do not rezone this for high density. If they want to put single houses for apartments, single homes, even a duplex where they're side by side, you know, one duplex on 2 lots versus 2 houses on 2 lots, that's fine. That's consistent with what the neighborhood is now.
Thank you,
But
Mr. Williams. Time.
it's time's up.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
That's
yeah.
what I
Yeah.
came to say. Thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, Connie Lenzo?
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Name and address.
My name is Corinne Lenzo. I'm at 320 Bloomsdale.
You're too close to the mic. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I gotta read. Okay, I'm gonna start off. I'm not nervous of y'all. I'm nervous of letting these people down here because I'm representing a lot of them. This is a flood, just a flood nightmare for most of us, but first and foremost, the children he was talking about, there are 3 of them. I don't know if I'm allowed to submit paperwork to y'all, but 2 of the families have given me permission to show you where their children are. They are adult children. They also are very autistic. When they get back from programs, they stim. They stim in the front yard. They walk in circles. We know they walk in circles. They are directly where this traffic will pass. These adult children are 32% higher chance to be exploited and abused. First and foremost, that's our community's big problem with this, traffic. I don't know, I didn't get permission to make this public, so I don't know if I can give it to you to show you how close these people are. You should be getting emails, hard copy, from the parents that can't be here today. I don't know about the rest of the pictures that I can give you. This is a sign that when I signed my contract after renting for 3 years, I'm at the very end, I don't know if you can put it up, I'm at the very end of Bloomsdale. I am where Chaseville, once it fills up at the end of the hill, it comes into me. This is the flooding on Chaseville, which happens after it breaches both the coverts, crosses the road, goes here, and then comes over and comes down on top of me. Always has.
Board, do we want to accept evidence or, staff, can we even?
That's up to the legal department.
Yeah, about the legal, I don't know even on this one
legal
here.
thing.
So they
Are you
appear,
stopping my
Because of the
clock?
kind of
'Cause this is gonna
conditions,
be
I don't
really
know if we
hard
can
to
take
spit all this out
conditions.
really quick if my clock keeps running.
Stop, you don't want your
Okay.
time.
they appear to be separate exhibits, and the board
are?
can consider them individually and decide whether to enter them into the evidentiary record.
Quite frankly, I think they're fine as they are now because they don't meet the criteria. Again, it's
That's
about
what I wanna make
overflow.
sure.
So I think she's made her point.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm good?
The board can take a vote not to enter that into evidence if it wishes to do so.
Okay. Board, let's do a vote. Do we want to take that into evidence? Okay, so I say, yeah, can we get a, all right, let's see, can we take the photographs that the, member of the public is presenting? Yes or no? I mean.
I would say there's no need to.
That's, yeah. No need, yeah, so.
You
We'll
can
hold
have-
off on that.
You can have all, but
Yeah.
you may not have that one. This is, no, they're not taking them. They got it.
Yeah, we got your point though, ma'am, so,
Okay.
yeah. You can proceed, though.
Right, okay. I've probably spoken to a few of you. When they did, the builders did come and talk to the neighbors, all it really did was stir them up and scare them. This is a low-income, single-family, 2 streets. That's it, 2 streets, 3.5 blocks long. Started with, so I would call, and y'all said 5 houses. And I was like, okay, 5 houses. Then while I was on the phone, that changed to 8 houses, which we're still, okay, 8 houses we can do. I never called y'all again. 8 houses we're good with. We're not saying no development, but 8 houses, still got a flood problem because there's no sewage. There's no curbs at all. It's just a street and it just piles down on us. We still were okay with that. Then came the red sign. Okay, that just terrorizes all of us. Once this fills up, you concrete and blacktop it, I won't flood. I'm the only one elevated. All these people behind me, they're gonna go down. There's nowhere for it to go unless you allow them to use the lake or Bayou Chico, which is what they brought up when they did their little stir about in the neighborhood. They were gonna use that as their retention pond. Okay, I don't want my yard used as a retention pond. I don't. It's unacceptable that y'all would think that I'm allowed to. We also request that before any building is done, that soil samples are done. That property has been used as a fire pit for the previous owners with lead paint, code enforcement, all this. You can pull up the records on that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lenza. All right, can we have Sue Wadunit, or am I reading that right?
You want to finish? What? She wants to speak. I didn't sign up to speak. She wants to speak.
Lundquist?
Yeah.
Okay.
She'll donate her time to me.
We're good.
We don't need that. We don't need that. Please,
we
please.
follow you. Then the next one would be Morgan Robinson, I believe it's.
My husband come with me, he's on the speak thing too.
He can come behind. Oh, we have another one. All right, give me a second to put this on file. I just stagger it, do one at a time, so.
Oh, one at a time?
Yeah.
My name's Morgan Robinson. I live at 104 Freedom Lane. Oh, yes, sir. I sure do. So I just want to say that I'm definitely opposed to I don't know all the there's tons of legal words that I do not understand in here. There's like a lot of information. But we have lived there 18 years. We own a property at 104 Freedom, which is on the other end of Freedom Lane. So there's Bloomsdale and Freedom's on we're on the very end. But those streets are just itty bitty. They're extremely narrow, and we cannot imagine 18 families, which let's say they have like 2 cars per house. That's like tons of traffic in our neighborhood. We just cannot imagine that we feel like that would not be a positive for this little area. We also own a business right there at 3802 West Navy Boulevard that this lady mentioned it being commercial. And I just cannot imagine having to go from our house to work with a gazillion new people in that area. We don't have, we're on a septic tank. We live on Bayou Chico. So I cannot imagine if the lady mentioned maybe drainage going into the bayou. We're not for it. I don't know if that was all the legal defenses I should use or all the terms, but we are totally opposed to this. Thank you.
All right, Todd, do you wish to speak, Ms. Robinson?
Todd Robinson.
All right, you're going to be sworn in.
I do, thank you. Yeah, the only thing I had to
Oh,
add.
if you can say your name and address for the
Todd
record.
Robinson, 104 Freedom Lane. The only thing I had to add is just the looking over the compatibility is that it is, the small residential now, and most of the homes in there that Jeff was talking about, the one we live in was built in 1950, and we lived there 18 years, and most of the reasons we're against it is, like you said, talking about the traffic. The roads are real narrow. If you said you've been there, sir, before, you saw how narrow the roads are. You even have to a lot of times pull over just to to let somebody else pass. The other issue I hadn't heard anybody mention is we're on People's Water, which is already a low pressure water system as it is, and I can't imagine, another complex being put on that. And the attorney mentioned the commercial, but I mean, the commercial is totally separated from there is no commercial across the street from that property. So that seemed to be misleading to me. But that's all I have, and we're definitely opposed to the project.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker is Laura Bartlett.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Do well.
Good morning, Laura Bartlett, 319 Freedom Lane. I live right across the street from the said property. Obviously, I'm here because I'm opposed to the changing of the zoning. I guess basically on your criteria, we are only surrounded by the yellow, which is the MDR. Yes, we do have that one section there that's HDMU, unless they're planning on building like boat homes or something. We're not worried about it because it is a pond, and it's always full of water pretty much. It would not preserve our neighborhood as it is now. I know that the traffic situation, they did talk about the road department talking about it, and it's, they said it may not be a problem, and I know that's not really part of the criteria. However, as previous people have mentioned, we already have quite a bit of traffic on that road, and they're very narrow. And somebody did mention something about well-connected streets. However, if you look at this, Chaseville ends right there, so it's a dead-end street. Bloomsdale is also a dead-end street. And then Freedom, which is the other one that is on this property, is not necessarily a dead-end street, but it starts there and it ends at another street. So it's not a main road, it's not a through street. And, it's different if you have a complex on a main street such as Navy Boulevard, where you have plenty of room to let people in and out, which, makes it okay. But if they're planning on having 20 different lots there, that means it's at least 20 extra people that are gonna be living there, which would cause a lot more traffic. And then, obviously there's an issue with the flooding. We're right there where the bayou is, which, we wanna keep, that clean as much as possible. If they do have 20 dwellings there, there's not just going to be the dwellings that are going to take up a lot of the area that the surface where the water would permeate, also the parking area. So it would be pretty tight. And then, of course, we all single-story homes. And more than likely, if they're going to put 20 lots in there, 20 different dwellings, then they're going to end up being, double stories, which would not also be compatible with what we have in this area at this time. So that's all I got to say.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you
Definitely.
for your time.
You're good. All right, Charles Wolf.
I'm getting a little old.
If you go ahead and get sworn in, then give your name and address for.
My name
the
is
record.
Charles Wolf. I'm sorry.
Raise your right hand.
Ready?
Do you swear to affirm, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Now your name and address.
Okay. Charles Wolf, 7461 Klondike Road. I own property on the other side of the lake there, and at the far end. And I border probably a few hundred feet from where these ladies are. And one of the things I'd like you to take into consideration is the landowners and not renters. And I think some of the people you've had are renting houses there, so they should not really be taken into long-term consideration. And I'm sure you guys have heard of the Bluff Line project, and of course this whole area here is going to end up being part of that development of Jackson Lakes. And I know that the county is all for developing that part of town and trying to bring it upscale. Right now, most of the area over towards Jackson is not as well developed as other places, and I think as it goes on, this is coming upscale. And one of the things about this development is it would actually bring a lot of upscale people into this area. I would call it the development that I saw is not an apartment building that I saw. I saw it was a single family, zero lot line homes. And that would bring affordable housing. It would bring more like an affordable housing, but upscale affordable housing. And it would up the neighborhood and the use of that property. So I would say that I'm one of the largest landowners over there. I have a total of about 15 acres right above where this is. And I know with the development of Jackson Lakes and with Bluff Line coming in, I think this would be a good development to support that whole Jackson Lakes improvement.
Thanks so much, sir. Appreciate it. Next speaker is Kevin Fox.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
My name's Kevin Fox, and I live at 1800 East Mallory Street. I moved to Pensacola from Atlanta 15 years ago, and I've never wanted to leave. It's a great place. There's a true uniqueness between our beaches and our mainland. Obviously, this project is on our mainland, and as we continue to grow, you know, a lot of my friends from Atlanta always thought that I moved to a small little island in South Alabama. We all know that's not the case anymore, right? So, you know, what we're talking about is as a project leader on this project for Old City Developers is we're wanting to put in 20 units. As it's currently zoned, it's for 11. So we're not trying to add, you know, triple or quadruple to what it's already currently there. We're just trying to maximize the spot. The Bluff Line's gonna come in. This is gonna be a beautification project for a neighborhood that really needs it. From what I understand, before I moved here, this neighborhood was a really, really nice neighborhood that has seen some trouble over the last couple decades. This project will hopefully bring back some of the nostalgia that this neighborhood had 20 or 30 years ago. I know that I've talked to neighbors as the project leader to find out what their concerns are. One of the main concerns that they have is safety, right? So this project, and it's also been proven that when you bring in new construction or new developments, you're bringing more eyes and awareness to the area, which only creates a more sense of community and also should alleviate some of their concerns for safety, homelessness, and drug use in the area. Not only that, we mentioned earlier, I believe Horace is his name, that urban upzoning only enhances the neighborhood, and that's what this would be. You know, there's a lot of benefits to it, not only from what we talked about, beautification, safety, but also the jobs and the tax base that comes with it. You know, I have an Airbnb and a real estate business. A lot of my clients come from out of town. And it used to be they would only come here for the beach. But over the last couple of years, they've started to come for the Pensacola mainland area. You know, we've got a lot of different projects that are going to be coming in. and a lot of different momentum that I want to keep perpetuating for this area. I believe that this rezoning will only continue to push that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jennifer Hart.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name's Jennifer Hart, and I live downtown Pensacola, but I own 2 lots on Bloomsdale. I own lots 1 and 2, which were 313 and 319 Bloomsdale, and had them combined into one with, excuse me, I'm nervous, which with the intention of building a single-family dream home for myself. A $400,000 house is what I have designed. Even though I have been threatened and harassed and my property trespassed by them, I was delighted to find out the rest of the properties were bought with, and recently was privy to the intentions of the development. This area has some dilapidated properties and renters, and it's a really great opportunity to, a great potential for improvement and development. Our block is beautiful, and like I said, I'm on those 2 lots on Bloomsdale, so I am the closest to this proposal. Some of it against it, like I said, don't even own their property. This will increase property value. Like I said, I was downtown, and you should see, I mean, obviously, y'all know all the new construction, and it's brought property values up. And this deserves the opportunity for improvement and development. And I appreciate your time. I'm female. I didn't need 3 minutes.
Thank you. All right, next is Jerry DeMars.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name is Jerry DeMars. I live at 313 Freedom Lane. I'm just want to say that I'm opposed to it. It's a quiet, we live in a quiet residential neighborhood. There's very minimal traffic. There's kids playing in the road, like was already said. There's people biking. There's dogs being walked, and just more traffic. It's just not what I want personally. It's a beautiful lot, and of course, progress happens, things change, but I love the beauty of the lot as it is, and I know that has to change, but to just destroy it completely is just a horrible thought. It's just a horrible thought, but that's really what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up and speaking. Next speaker is Amanda Burns.
Good morning.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
My name's Amanda Burns, and I live at 111 Freedom Lane. I think it's just outside of that circle to the right. Yes, I believe that's it. I've lived there for about a year, but I've lived in Pensacola my whole life. I'm 41 years old. I'm very opposed to this. That lot, number one, has at least 20 or more oak trees on it that are absolutely beautiful. And there's also, I don't know if wildlife has been mentioned, we've got bald eagles everywhere. This neighborhood is very peaceful and quiet, and we do have, single dwelling houses and a lot of families on that street, and I'm one of them. I ride my bikes with my kids down that street often. I totally agree with the amount of traffic on that particular corner would be very inappropriate. I have seen the special needs children who are walking around, adult children, and I do feel like that they would be in danger from that. This to me is just your typical, overdevelopment in Pensacola. And this is like one of the very few lots that I know of in the neighborhood that's vacant. I don't think just because there's a vacant lot that we should tear everything down and build something so we can help our own pocketbook. That's what it sounds like to me. I believe it's already medium, and if I'm not a professional about any of this at all, but it's almost 1.5 acres. So if we could have 10 dwellings in an acre, we could have about 15 dwellings already. That's already too much if you ask me, and probably ask any of the people who live in the surrounding area. We just want to preserve the quiet neighborhood that we have because there's very few of them left in this town. And it being by the water, the nature, the traffic, the crime it would bring, the danger to our children on the very narrow streets, I 100% oppose this. I don't see how this would help the community at all. This would only help people who are investors. And we've got enough of that going on in this town. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks much. Thank you for coming to speak. Next speaker is Jane Birdwell.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jane Birdwell, and I live at 418 Creary Street. I'm here because I purchased this property. My name is still attached in some of the documents, so I thought it was a good idea for me to come and share. Thank you all for your service about what I've learned about this community. I did meet with neighbors. I have talked with a lot of people, some here, some not. I know Bo had to leave. He had a family emergency. It's always interesting to me as someone who's spent 25 years trying to make things better in my community, how people can see things differently, and I totally respect everyone's opinion. But I had a pre-application meeting with staff, and all I can tell you is that leaving that meeting, the word that I would describe was excitement. Everybody was excitement. Of course, I was, and I'm so happy to hear that there is an openness to some development number, because at the beginning, it was like no development. There were people there that took pride that nothing would happen to that lot. And historically, there were homes on that lot way back when. When I visited that neighborhood as a child, my parents' best friends lived on Pinewood. That was an affluent, thriving neighborhood. When you talk about character in a neighborhood, I don't want to offend, because there's some people here who do a great job of their property, but mainly it is in horrible disrepair. It's neglect. It is 5 minutes from downtown Pensacola. It is one of the last urban developments. And I would like to say that a thriving square with, well, we've never heard the word apartment. I would have never sold it to somebody who was going to put an apartment complex there. Those trees, unfortunately, when I had them assessed, most of them are dead or dying or hollow inside. That is not. And a lot of the things that people are talking about, flooding, wildlife, all of that, this development can help. I mean, Max Rogers, my CRA director's right there, get them some sidewalks so these kids cannot play in the streets and walk on roads. There are 4 major thoroughfares. Well, they're small streets, but there are 4 ways to get to Navy Boulevard. So I just want to open your mind that this neighborhood, more than any I have seen in a long time, is so deserving of appropriate development. And I don't know this developer to do anything but quality work. And I'll leave you with one thought. It's in the city, but remember the first out-of-the-box development on Gregory Street, right just, what is that, west of or east of Legion Field. That square, that town square, was the greatest compliment to those single individual residents, and it brought that neighborhood back. It was the fire, it was the igniter that turned. So now I have investment on those side streets. We want to revitalize this whole neighborhood, and I would just ask these nice people to see the upside of what this could bring. Thank you so much for your time today. And
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
All right, the next speaker, Vincencio Simbaldi, if I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? State your name and address.
Hi, my name is Vincenzo Sinibaldi. I live at 111 Freedom Lane. I've been a real estate agent here in Pensacola for 7 years. I'm a college student at PSC, 3.8 GPA. So I got a lot of qualifications. I've worked with developers like Thomas Holmes and D.R. Horton. So I understand the zoning and what's appropriate for some locations and what's not appropriate. I disagree with this development. I don't think it's appropriate at all. And I have multiple points for B, C, D, and E, okay? One comes with feasibility. I don't know if they've done an ecology study yet, but I'm a bird watcher. I've personally seen multiple bald eagles and golden eagles in the canopies of those oak trees there. They're not dead. So I disagree with that statement. So if that hasn't been done, it needs to be done. The traffic infrastructure is not sufficient by any means for that many dwellings. There needs to, I mean, it would just be terrible. Let's see. So I had read up on the zoning and, you know, just the descriptions of it, and section 311, line 4 says to preserve the character and quality of the residential neighborhoods. This would not. It does not blend in with the surroundings. While there are duplexes, there are only 2 to 3, maybe 4 units, but they're all designed as houses, and they're not, this will not fit in at all. And along with that, let's see here. Line 6 says balance individual property rights with the interest of community to create safe and orderly living environment. Safe and orderly, if you think about that, right? So just, this is not within the 500-foot radius, but if you take into account the Pines at Warrington and the Meridian Point Apartments, which used to be the old Sandstone Apartments, there is an extremely high rate of crime in those 2 areas. Okay, I've had my bike stolen and I found them there. But not only that, a lot of that, so you're gonna think that the apartments are gonna bring in a lot of, you know, a lot of safety. Apparently that's what was said, a lot of extra eyes. No, the fact of the matter is what's gonna be put there is units that are gonna be rented by mostly Section 8. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But with the increase in people comes the increase of crime. So it would, in terms, possibly make the neighborhood a little bit less safer. Let's see. Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. It wouldn't fit in, so.
Thank you for coming up and speaking. Next speaker is Fraser Forsyth. Okay, all right. All right, next speaker is Larry Downs Jr.
Alrighty. You know, I don't have a dog in this fight, in any of these fights, because I don't own property near or around them, but I do have an interest, my own self-interest of prosperity and property rights for you and each one of y'all. I mean, I know y'all might vote against your own property rights, but you shouldn't be voting against others. I don't get that last case. I do not get it at all. I think they ought to sue. But anyways, this one here, you know, it's the same thing. You know, we have, it's just amazing to me that, you know, that people want to build all these houses. I mean, don't they know we got roughly 80 million baby boomers about to disappear? You know, that's going to be a lot of houses. The reproductive rate is at 1.6, needs to be at 2.5. I mean, come on, we can see you can see the writing on the wall here. We're going to have an abundance of housing. We are. However, I still have to go with the freedom. You still have to go with it. Because when in doubt, if you got to flip a coin, Jesus, just go to freedom. It's so much better. It's so much better. And I get what these people are saying. I get it. You know, the desirables. You know, some will say it outright, like me. I'll just say it outright. Oh, they don't want the undesirables there. You know, not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, I mean, you could just sit here and play both sides. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Who gets to decide who's the undesirables? Who gets to decide? This is the funny part about this is Freedom Lane. Freedom Lane. When Freedom Lane was originally established, they actually had some freedom. They could have built this without even asking y'all or anybody else. 1950? Easy. They could have built whatever they wanted. They were grandfathered into freedom on Freedom Lane. Isn't that just amazing? So I'm just asking y'all, to try to go towards freedom. I mean, I understand what these people are saying. If I was there, I wouldn't want it either. However, I wouldn't be up here, even if I live right next door to it. I wouldn't be up here advocating against my neighbor's freedom. Just wouldn't do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next speaker is Chris Kerb.
Freedom's not the enemy.
Chris Kerb, 5999 Somerset Drive, Pensacola, Florida. With Flood Defenders. This is a hard one. I really want to provide a little information here, more than object or approve. But the HDMU right there, that's a regional stormwater pond. Why has that got a zoning of a HDMU? Because you're never going to build HDMU on that stormwater pond. But that's just one observation. Did you mention that this is in a flood zone X?
I think if we provided a map, I'm not sure, but currently it's flood zone X. Yeah.
Well, right next to it is a flood zone AE, Bayou Chico, Jackson Creek, and April 2014, there's 3 damage points on Chaseville Street. If you go further to the west on actual Jackson Lakes, there's a couple of more damage points from that storm event. Point being is there are flooding issues there. Hurricane Debbie, First Street Foundation did a model of flooding in Hurricane Debbie, and they determined that 70% of those structures in Hurricane Debbie from their model were outside the high hazard flood zones, outside the flood zone X, meaning they flooded. That's a lot of properties, and it pretty much tells us that our flood zone maps, which we're still using 2006, we haven't adopted the preliminary 2017 flood insurance rate maps. They are don't really reflect the reality of flooding. This one's not in a bowl; it has a place to drain to, but that creek gets a high flood stage. That's the reason those pits were converted into stormwater ponds by the county several years ago. So what do you do to build on that? Well, you got to build it up. It's called fill and build. Fill and build is a problem that is not addressed by any land development code I've seen. Basically, you build it up. Where's your water go? Well, you might put a stormwater pond on site, but there again, your stormwater requirements need to be revised as well. So I'm really not for or against it, but it's one of those situations where it's really a bad area, considering you got a regional pond right next door, which is HDMU. It should probably be an MDR, or not even have a zoning on it as a regional pond. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. If there's not any members of the public that wish to speak, we're going to close that out. I think we have everyone. Anything further from staff or the applicant?
I do want to state that Mr. Max Rogers, he was mentioned, he's the CIA director. He don't have to speak, but he's assists with CIA. His findings, which is a part of the Land Development Code, which is part of the rulings, part of the county, they are not in favor of this upzoning as well. So, but he is here if y'all need some questions for him, basically being that this is a community redevelopment area. So they did address this issue as well regarding the upzoning. And again, and as it was stated, that this property you can have some development on it because the zoning does allow for it. But again, every area is not suitable for upzoning, especially with the potential of the more intense residential uses that can come to this area, which is not compatible with the surrounding and the existing, not the adjacent and contiguous parcels and zoning categories.
I have a couple, sorry.
Do you want to go ahead and I can come back?
Meredith, you're fine. I just had a question on your application on page 217 of the package. You said it's sanitary sewer, and people were referencing septic.
So the development would ultimately be connected to, I believe, to sanitary sewer.
Currently, there is not sanitary sewer.
No, there's not. So it's been funded for 2025.
Okay, there was just a conflict there. I'll let you go before I.
And Meredith, before you go, I want to just jump in real quick and ask, what's the delta between the yield per acre that is needed? I apologize if I ran out to use the restroom during the developer's discussion, but I didn't know if where are we trying to get to?
We're trying to get to 20 units.
And we're talking 10 to 18 right now?
Well, so it's 1.5 acre, a little under 1.5
Right.
acres at 10 an acre.
Right.
So,
Okay.
12 to 13 is where we're at right now. We're looking for an additional 7 or so.
Okay. I want to.
And again, there's been a lot of discussion about apartments, but nothing in the submission
Understood.
indicates apartments.
Understood.
So I know we're going for a density factor here. Now, for kind of both of y'all here, did Escambia County reach out to you in the fact of trying to bring an idea of a PUD to this site?
So the thing about a PUD is you can't increase density with a PUD. So the developer would be happy to do a PUD if it allowed for a higher density, but we're limited to the 10 units in the MDR. So with a PUD,
Miss, be quiet, please. Thank you.
so we're limited to the density allowed by the zoning category. But I do believe there was a conversation between one of the representatives or the developer's representatives and someone at the county about a PUD, but it just doesn't solve the problem of not getting us to 20 units. So if there were a way to, again, conditionally rezone or, but unfortunately that's not allowed and there's no other category between MDR and HDR to get us up to the number of units we need.
Right. And just to reaffirm what Ms. Bush stated, yes, there was a project. We did have pre-application about a PUD, but again, the density is the issue. Again, perhaps if they could reach out to the community about some type of deed restrictions associated with this property, deed restrictions or some type of development agreement about that it would not be for apartments, just a density issue. Just these are the things, because since they're not gonna be in apartments, and that's the most egregious, it's the density associated with the apartment, with the 2 stories, and it's always ground story, so. But again, we don't have conditional rezonings, and we just have to always, with our criteria, but we don't have that, so.
Yeah, I personally, this is a planned urban development, or it's a whole nother situation where they give and take, and my question is a naive attempt to potentially reach the middle ground here, because, nobody wants it built in their backyard. But at some point, they cut down the trees on your lot, so where you live, right? And so, and at this one, back to the freedom of what these people can do with their property, that's one thing. I applaud the developer for reaching out and talking to you. Many times we see it, that doesn't happen, they don't care what you think. I wish that there was some middle ground that you guys could reach, quite frankly. The letter of the law, what we have to deal with, is somewhat spelled out for us. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think that there is some benefit to what could happen there, and it could benefit the neighborhood. I've never heard anyone laud the benefits of septic over sewer. I hope we have cleaner waterways, and I think that the ECUA will, the whole plan is to get everybody on city sewer. I know there's backup plans when power goes down, but before we get in the weeds and all that, I just, it's unfortunate. I just wish you guys could come up with a, like you said, a logical, fair agreement between the two parties, but,
So, we would just ask that you adopt our findings as opposed to those of the counties, and determine that it is consistent and compatible. Respectfully, having some sort of deed restriction or development agreement, all we can do is give you our word here today. This is what the intent is, and this is what the reason the developer purchased the property. If we did come with some deed restrictions that said we'll just put 20 units, that's still, akin to conditional rezoning and doesn't even address the compatibility. If it's compatible with the deed restrictions, it's compatible without. And so we would just ask that you adopt our findings, reject staff's findings, and approve the rezoning as a needed development in the area.
I'll entertain a motion to the effect if someone wants to do that, but I don't know. Is there any more discussion on this matter too before that?
I just want to add a comment. I'm going to dovetail off of Mr. Pyle. The difference is 14 units versus 20 units. Tomorrow they could put 14 units on that parcel. They have every right to do that.
I don't disagree with that fact. I think we're, based on the criterion, it's just a hard one to maneuver on this one here. And I know going by the original, what Meredith started with here, about the idea about HDMU, I think we'd have to go and start this kind of all over again, this process. I don't even know if I should say, should we leave, Horace, I defer to staff, should we leave that door open as an option here for today?
I respectfully, I would not, because the criteria of the conflicts are still there. The conflicts, the meeting the expectations of the criteria is still there, as Ms. Bush stated. The density is still there, and the uses are still there. So, and that's and that is to make an assessment based upon a lake, which you can have no development on it anyway. That's and those parts are clearly separated. They're not adjacent, they're not abutting, nor are they contiguous. They're separated by right-of-ways.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask is there an opinion from the Warrington overlay? I don't want to put you on the spot. I didn't know if there was a.
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to, the CRA rep for the whole Warrington one.
We've been in contact with the CRA, and it's included in the findings that, wouldn't meet the housing element as defined in the comprehensive plan or protecting the neighborhood, so.
But he is available to speak if y'all want to engage with him.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
For case number Z 2024-19, go with staff's findings and ask for denial.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll go there. All right, so we have a motion for denial and a second by Eric and a motion by Reed. All right, those who support this, raise your right hand. Those opposed? None. Passed unanimously for denial. That is the adjournment for this. I do think we have a public speaker, actually. I don't know, we're typically not set up for rezoning on public speaking. Can we even take a public speaker for rezoning, Kate?
Yeah, we don't have a regular meeting, so.
Yeah, can we?
Yeah.
All right, I guess we got, Larry, you got 3 minutes.
No, hold on, about to speak. don't you go anywhere. You come here and listen to the speech. Nope, it's over.
Hey, can we go ahead and clear out? So there is a public speaker. One of you speaks, so please take the conversations outside. Thank you.
Are
All right,
y'all
we'll
ready?
give you- Yeah, and then I got some.
Y'all like my shirt?
It's passable for today.
All right. It's a beautiful shirt, beautiful freedom. All those people just left. They didn't even know they were advocating against their own freedom. It's amazing. I mean, they kind of know, but they just want to. No. Anyways, I just wanted to speak a little bit. Let y'all know that y'all can find my website on the World Wide Web. It's www.missionobvious.com, and you can find a question that I asked Senator Rick Scott on there. Interesting question about the vaccine manufacturers, and his response is pretty interesting too. That was just a few weeks ago in person. Hey, staff, please. I feel like I'm competing here in a cafeteria. All right. Anyways, check that out. And also, just in case any of y'all haven't heard, our Florida State Surgeon General, Joseph Latipold, Dr. Joseph Latipold, has called a halt for all COVID injections. So stop getting them. You'll see the commercials. Don't run down there and get more. It's not good for you. It's not good for your cancer cells or your cancer-fighting cells. It messes with those. Also, just in the future, if y'all do have a case in front of you, and you can go either which way. You can go towards staff findings of they get paid to not. If y'all could go towards freedom, I mean it could go either way. Let the county commissioners decide. Let them decide. I mean, it's a flip of a coin, so go ahead and go with freedom and let the commissioners decide. Then you put it on them. Y'all aren't just making a recommendation. Y'all not the be-all, end-all. Put it on the elected officials. That way, you're not denying people their rights here, and it's their job, not yours. Just because staff says something doesn't mean it's so. We've seen that many a times over the years. Many a times. They used to tell me that I couldn't have a sign up at my property saying free boxing. Now, that was fought against, and now it's obscured. That's part of the content is content neutral now. So now I can have it up. But once upon a time, I was before this board 20 years ago, 25 years ago. They told me in my residential neighborhood I couldn't have a sign up that said free boxing lessons. But Century 21 could have a sign up selling the property, advertising their commercial business. And I argued with them. All right, I only want 3 more minutes. All right, y'all have a beautiful day. Remember, you can't go on freedom. Freedom's not the enemy.
See you later. I think that's adjournment unless we have anything from staff.
I just want to note that the next meeting is October 29th, not November, Reed. October 29th.
What is that again?
October 29. Only because
I'll be happy to come on November and see
we're
nobody
a voting
here.
precinct. We're a voting precinct that's going on the first Tuesday of that month, and then the next week is Veterans Day, so October 29th worked better.
How's it shaping up?
2, possibly 3 cases.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Do we have a director's report or anything else we need for today? Okay, well, that makes it easy enough. Call.